Hello world. Good morning, namaste and Nisambula Vinaka from Sydney, Australia. I am Sashi Singh and welcome once again to Sashi Singh's Talking Point. In episode 27 this week, we will shortly meet our chief guest, Mr. Manoa Kamikamica, a Fijian national with over 32 years of finance, aviation, banking, and manufacturing experience at a senior executive level, and who has recently embarked on a political career and appointed the deputy leader of the People's Alliance Party. We will discuss with Mr. Manoa Kamikamica aspects of the budget that was just handed down last Friday, analyze the FNPF share acquisition of Fiji Airways, discuss some of the electoral laws as well as alleged complaints sent to the Supervisor of Elections that poses a threat to the opposition political parties, amongst other matters of interest that really matters to the grassroots people of Fiji. I hope wherever you are very well settled in to enjoy an enlightening interview with my chief guest. As always, may I please request that you share the SSTP page on your own timelines so that we may share the interview with Mr. Manoa Kamikamica with as many interested people as possible to ensure that you receive instant notifications for all future programs. Please like the SSTP page and if you can, follow us as well. And if you are joining us for the very first time, a big welcome to you. I do realize we've had some 200 odd people who've joined us just this week alone. To you, welcome. Welcome to your first episode of SSTP. To our regulars, our milestone followers, and our top fans, welcome back. It's always a pleasure to have you back. I hope you enjoyed today's program as well. Welcome to the Thinking People's program, Sashi Singh's Talking Point, live on Facebook and on YouTube. As always, we begin today's episode 27 of the SST program with a very warm welcome to our regular contributor, former Fiji TV journalist Nikhil Singh, to tell us of the key happenings of the political week in Fiji and Australia. Nikhil, welcome to SSTP. A very good morning to you. I hope the week off last week was just the tonic you needed for some rest and recreation.
Certainly, it was the case, Sashi. Good morning to you.
Yes, indeed. Good morning. Well, Nikhil, let's get straight into your segment. The Attorney General Ayaz Sayed Qayyum has commenced contempt of court proceedings against vocal renowned civil lawyer Richard Naidu. The Attorney General wants the case to progress expeditiously. The defense has fired a question back to the AG, and there was also a problem with the AG's motion for committal proceedings. What do you have for us on this story, Nikhil?
Well, the country's chief legal officer, the Attorney General, was asked that his motion for committal proceedings against Richard Naidu be served on Mr. Naidu again. Now, it is for others to judge if this was a rookie error by the Attorney General and his legal team, Sashi, but here's what the Fiji Times reported. The hearing of the committal proceedings was scheduled to begin on Friday on the 8th July, but Mr. Apted told the court, Mr. Apted being Mr. Naidu's, one of Mr. Naidu's lawyers, told the court that if it did, it would breach High Court Rules 1988, which states, and I quote, when leave has been granted under Rule 2 to apply for an order of committal, the application for the order must be made by motion, and unless the court granting leave has otherwise directed, there must be at least 8 clear days between the service of the notice of motion and the day named therein for the hearing. Now, Dhamnesh Sharma, who is representing the Attorney General, confirmed Mr. Naidu was not served for 8 clear days. The court ordered that the motion be served again. Once this had been adhered to, Sashi, parties were back in court. The Attorney General's lawyers then argued that his client wanted an expedited hearing, but the defense fired one straight back. Naidu's lawyer, John Apted, said he failed to see why the Attorney General waited 4 months to bring contempt of court proceedings against Richard Naidu and now wants an expedited hearing. Mr. Apted said they failed to see the rush because the article in question was allegedly published in February and the Attorney General had taken no steps until filing the contempt application and now wants an expedited hearing. Sashi, this is in relation to an alleged social media post. Now, in response, Mr. Sharma said Mr. Naidu had about 4 months to take the post down and did not. Sashi, plea has been deferred and the matter will be back in court on Wednesday.
Moving straight along, still with the Fijian Attorney General, he has again lodged complaints against the NFP and the People's Alliance. The National Federation Party has slammed the Attorney General, calling his claims against the party as malicious and that the AG is manufacturing conspiracy theories. This is the battle of the respective Secretary Generals of the two parties. Please tell us more, Nikhil.
Yes, Sashi, there is 2 complaints in this. The Attorney General has said the first complaint referred to comments made by NFP stalwart Ahmad Banji at what appears to be a NFP campaign rally, and it is in relation to the Tertiary Education Loan Scheme or TELS. The Attorney General claims, and I quote, it says in that video, he claims that the TELS is a lifetime slavery. The second complaint the AG has lodged is in relation to both the NFP and the People's Alliance. In this complaint, he says a number of issues relate to them being NFP and People's Alliance, publicizing or putting out flyers regarding the gathering of the leaders or various members of the party that they are not in compliance with the electoral laws. Sashi, the NFP is quite furious with these allegations by the Attorney General. The party says that the Attorney General should confine himself to diligently performing his responsibilities as the Attorney General and Economy Minister instead of trying to manufacture what they say, and I quote, conspiracy theories. NFP's General Secretary has put out a really hard-hitting statement. Seni Nambo said, and I quote, the malicious claims could be a prelude to further amendments to either the Electoral Act or the Political Parties Act, try to impose more draconian requirements in respect to fundraising and campaigning. His claims about overseas fundraising are ludicrous and based on assumptions, Nambo has said. She goes on to say that the NFP has never conducted a joint fundraising drive with the People's Alliance, both locally and overseas. This was one of the complaints that the Attorney General has raised. She said, this is how the Fiji First Party is going to try to win the election, not on issues, but by harassing and distracting opposition parties on irrelevant points of the electoral law. The NFP has told the Attorney General, Sashi, I quote, bring it on. The party said, whatever it is, bring it on. We will not be trampled nor derailed from our vision to once again make Fiji a land of hope and opportunity, free from dictatorship and thuggery of two-man rule, Sashi.
There's a lot more to come on that, I'm sure, as time goes by, Nikhil. Now, just sticking with the barrage of complaints against the opposition by the Fiji First government, now there was a complaint lodged against the Supervisor of Elections, Mohammed Saneem, a while ago. Who lodged the complaint and what has happened to that complaint?
Sashi, there were 5 political opposition parties that had lodged concerns or raised concerns about the conduct of the Supervisor of Elections. There were several statements to this regard, but it ended up that 2 opposition political parties, the Fiji Labour Party and the Unity Fiji Party, then went on and progressed their complaint with civil action in court. Now, this is what was reported in the Fiji Times. A request by 5 political party leaders for an investigation into the conduct of Supervisor of Elections Mohammed Saneem was met with total silence from the Constitutional Officers Commission. Their lawyer, Sevaloni Valanatambua, said that had the Commission responded to the letter of complaint last year, the matter would not have reached court. He said the matter concerned two cases in which Mr. Sanim was involved, one involving former MP Nikhil Singh, and the other a case in which Mr. Sanim was challenged by the Electoral Commission. The defense lawyer, again, Davinesh Sharma, who's representing the other party, submitted that neither of the two cases in any way constitute misbehavior and requested the case be dismissed. This is not the end of the matter here, Sashi. I would assume that the Fiji Labour Party and Unity Fiji will continue to mount their case and seek a resolution on the concerns they have raised.
All right. A big week for Fiji with the Pacific Islands Forum, which is, of course, made up of 18 countries, including Australia and New Zealand, who gathered in Suva last week. Fiji's Prime Minister Frank Bainimarama chaired the meeting. However, cracks in the forum appeared as one nation pulled out of the forum, and Samoa's Prime Minister had a few things to say about the Fijian government's decision to withhold their share of the grant to the University of the South Pacific. What do you have for us on this front, Nikhil?
Well, Sashi, no better way to be in command and prosecute matters that affect Fiji and your neighboring partners when you are chairing the powerful regional gathering. However, there was a major setback for the Pacific Islands Forums and its chair, Frank Bainimarama. The Guardian Australia has reported that the key diplomatic body in the Pacific had been dealt a devastating blow on the eve of its first in-person meeting since the pandemic, as Kiribati announced it was withdrawing from the forum. Now, the president of Kiribati, Taneti Mamau, outlined his reasons for the decision in a letter to the Secretary General of the Pacific Islands Forum. He outlined 4 reasons for the decision, most of which center around his belief that the forum has not adequately addressed the concerns of Micronesian countries, including Kiribati, who threatened to leave the forum more than a year ago. In February 2021, Micronesian leaders announced plans to leave the regional body after their candidate for Secretary General of the forum was passed over in favor of a Polynesian candidate, despite a gentleman's agreement that the top job should be shared between Polynesian, Melanesian, and Micronesian candidates. Late last week, Shashi, we started seeing reports that all may not have been lost, as the communication between the chair of the forum and Kiribati remains open, with some indication that the country Kiribati will return to the forum at some stage sooner rather than later. On the issue of the University of the South Pacific, the Fiji Sun has actually reported that Samoan Prime Minister has called on the Fijian government to release the grant that it continues to withhold from the USP. The Samoan Prime Minister says, and I quote, "We remain with our stand. The Fijian government should pay up with its grant that it owes to the USP. Essentially, the rest of the region are subsidizing Fijian students, as government has not paid up the grant it owes to the university, and that it is not right." Fiji's Attorney General, in response, is remaining firm with his government's decision, Sashi.
The opposition parties and the country's peak trade union body have condemned the sale of Fiji Airways shares to the Fiji National Provident Fund. There have been complaints that the FNPF did not consult with its members before the transaction. What's the news there?
Well, consultation with the people whose money you are going to use was thrown out the window, Sashi. Not surprising, as things always are driven from the top, and if our parliament is anything to go by, then we have seen the dreaded Standing Order 51 being used to railroad bills. No consultation whatsoever. Very similar situation in this matter, Sashi. Now, the former Prime Minister and Fiji Labour Party leader Mahendra Chaudhry has denounced the lack of transparency in the manner in which FNPF has acquired these 30.02% shares in the debt-riddled national airline Fiji Airways. Chaudhry says the entire exercise is highly questionable, and the acquisition was announced indirectly by the airline's CEO when he mentioned the airline has 3 new directors on its board, 2 of them from FNPF, which had brought equity into the airline. Now, this is a report from Fiji Village, Sashi. Chaudhry says he sees it as a direct debt to equity swap because no organization in its right mind would think of investing in an airline at this time, as it is too risky. Fund members are in the dark as to how much was paid to acquire the shares and whether a due diligence was done by the directors to comply with their fiduciary responsibility to the members. The former Prime Minister adds the manner in which the government is using the FNPF to bail out quasi-government companies in financial trouble is deplorable. Now, the NFP's Biman Prasad says the FNPF's acquisition of these shares in Fiji Airways is clouded in financial secrecy and lacks complete transparency and accountability to the workers of Fiji who own the fund. Prasad goes on to say the first question that needs clarity is the role of the Attorney General and the Minister for Economy in this deal, as he quickly jumped to comment and say this should have happened much earlier. The NFP poses a question, and that question is, a quote, is it true that FNPF has bought shares for $96 million just to help Fiji Airways raise more cash? Now, the peak employee representative body, the Fiji Trades Union Congress, they have described the FNPF's purchase of these shares as, I quote, simply shocking and unanticipated. FTUC's leader, Felix Anthony, said, all these deals appear to have been made in secrecy without proper due diligence, and the fact that workers' money is being expended to save the airline, this is a shocking development. We have not heard of any workers' superannuation scheme investing in airlines, more particularly at a time like this. This is further compounded, he says, by the fact that some aircraft operated by Fiji Airways is not owned by Fiji Airways, but by Wangavuka Financing Limited, based in Ireland. This is no surprise when the entire board of FNPF are representatives of the government. They clearly do not recognize that it is workers' funds that they are trustees of and not an extension of the Ministry of Economy. That's from Felix Anthony, Sashi.
All right. Well, let me assure you and our viewers that we will be discussing some of these topics that Nikhil's spoken about with our chief guest this afternoon. Now, closer to home and briefly, Nikhil, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese was also in Fiji last week for the Pacific Islands Forum gathering in Suva. What would you put as highlights on this trip to Suva, his highlights?
Well, Sashi, you might say that this is a big call, but considering the attitude of the Solomon Islands during the last few months of the former government and the statement that the Solomon PM made last week, I think credit has to go to Anthony Albanese, and I am referring to this report in The Guardian. The Prime Minister of Solomon Islands has guaranteed that there will never be a Chinese military base in his country, saying that any such deal with Beijing would undermine regional security, make Solomon Islands an enemy, and put our country and our people as targets for potential military strikes. He has also said that Australia remains the security partner of choice for Solomon Islands, and he would only call on China to send security personnel to the country if there was a gap that Australia could not meet. Looking at the forum overall, we did have Kiribati pulling out, but I think the forum is united on one of the main concerns in the region, Sashi, and that is the adverse impact of climate change. Now, we are waiting the final communique from the forum, but Australia looks set to sign up to a joint statement from the Pacific Islands Forum leaders that is expected to declare a climate emergency and call for rapid and deep reductions in greenhouse gas emissions to limit global warming. The communique endorsed by all Pacific leaders after their meeting in Suva has not yet been published, but it is also set to back Vanuatu's push to secure a request from the UN to ask the International Court of Justice to issue an advisory opinion on the legal consequences of climate change. It praises it also praises the Albanese's government's move to lift Australia's emissions reduction target, but gives only a brief mention of its push to host a UN climate change conference with Pacific Island nations, with Pacific Islands leaders welcoming the idea. Sashi, we'll have more on this as soon as we get our hands on the final communique.
All right, Nikhil, thank you very much for your contribution today. We look forward to seeing you next week in SSTP as well. Thank you once again, Nikhil.
Thank you, Shashi.
You are watching Sashi Singh's Talking Point on Facebook Live. We ask the questions that Fijians all over the world want answers to. As I say, Fijians want to know. Please like and follow the SSTP page if you have not done so. I have an important announcement to share with our viewers. Sashi Singh's Talking Point, SSTP, recognizes that questioning, constructive arguments, and opinions are part of conversation, but posts with aggressive personal attacks, profanity, name-calling, swearing, defamatory in nature, and/or threatening will be removed immediately, and offenders will be blocked from being part of the SSTP program. Let's observe these rules and let's enjoy the program. I certainly welcome your comments, but let's keep it peaceful. Now it is time to meet our chief guest on SSTP. Our chief guest today is Mr. Manoa Kamikamica, who, as I said in my brief introduction, is a Fijian national with over 32 years of finance, aviation, banking, and manufacturing experience at senior executive level. He recently embarked on a political career and has been appointed the deputy party leader in the People's Alliance Party. He has also started a consulting business as well. He is a chartered accountant by profession and is the first Indigenous Fijian to become a member of the Australian Institute of Chartered Accountants. He is presently a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants in Australia, New Zealand, and Fiji. Prior to his current vocation, Manoa was the CFO and general manager for the Lyndhurst Group of Companies for 3 years. Before joining Lyndhurst Group of Companies, he was with ANZ, serving as the country head Tonga and CFO for an associate director in international banking in Papua New Guinea. Prior to joining ANZ from Fiji, he worked as a senior executive for Fiji's national carrier, Fiji Airways, formerly known as Air Pacific. Over the 13 years at Fiji Airways, he served as General Manager Finance, General Manager Strategic Planning, before launching and running the domestic subsidiary of Fiji Airways, Pacific Sun, now called the Fiji Link. Some of his key achievements in Fiji Airways was playing a lead role in the setup of Pacific Sun from the acquisition of Sun Air, reintroducing ATR 42 aircraft into domestic and regional aviation, leading the setup of the integrated IT systems for Air Pacific, and the negotiations for purchase of 5 B787-900s from the Boeing Company, the largest single investment by a company in Fiji of over $1.5 billion at that time. Manoa acted in ANZ country head roles in the Solomons and the Cook Islands. He serves as a board director and continues to serve his community by volunteering in his church, professional associations, and former schools. Manoa Kamikamica also serves as a member of the Fiji Institute of Accountants Investigations Committee and a former executive of the BPO Council of Fiji. He holds a Bachelor of Commerce from the University of New South Wales in Australia. He was part of the Lead the Future program in 2012 and was mentor to Pacific nationals aspiring to leadership in ANZ. He's married to Anne and they have one daughter, is a keen follower of rugby, squash, tennis, snooker, and golf. I say, what a resume for a true son of Fiji. With that introduction, it is my great pleasure to welcome our chief guest for today, Mr. Manoa Kamikamica, to episode 27 of Sashi Singh's Talking Point. Manoa, good morning from Sydney, good afternoon in Fiji. Welcome and a big Nissan Bulavinaka to you, sir. Hold on. You're mute on your end. I think you'll have to unmute yourself. It was all good while it was working. You'll just have to unmute yourself. Can we do anything to help him from here? You just have to yes. All
Done.
right.
Yep.
We're back on. Thank you. Well, as I said, good morning from Sydney. A big Nissan Bulavinaka to you. Welcome to Sashi Singh's Talking Point.
Yeah, thank you very much, Shashi. It's an honor to be on your program. I know I've had many esteemed colleagues on your show earlier, and thank you for this opportunity just to talk about our country and the state it's in, and all the other topics that we'll cover today. Thank you very much.
The pleasure is all mine, and I really, really appreciate you volunteering your time on this Sunday afternoon to be part of SSTP. Well, if you've heard any of my past programs, I like beginning at the very beginning. And let me begin as I always do. Let's find out a bit about your good self. Which part of Fiji do you hail from? Where were you born?
Yeah, thank you, Shashi. I mean, I was obviously born in Suva at the then Morrison Ward in Suva back in a couple of years ago now. But I am from Andravo Mbau in Tailevu, and my mom's from Navunievu in Bua.
All
In
right. And
Vanuatu.
wonderful. We share something in common. My background is also Tailevu. Now, you are, of course, the son of the late Mr. Josephato Kamikamica and Mrs. Isiteri Kamikamica. Now, your dad, Mr. Kamikamica Sr., was a long-time general manager of the then Native Land Trust Board before becoming Minister of Finance in Ratu Sir Kamisese Mara's interim government in 1987. Your mother, Mrs. Kamikamica, was a seasoned teacher, administrator, and trade unionist. What influence, Manoa, did your parents have on you as you were growing up?
Thank you, Sashi. Clearly they had a massive influence on my life and how I viewed the world. I think one of the things that I remember very well is just the importance of family, church, honesty, and working hard. Both my parents came from very humble backgrounds. They did it the hard way. Their parents had to look for coconuts, hunt for mana to get school fees, and that's kind of stayed with me all my life. That just how important it is to appreciate what you have and work hard for what you have. Yeah.
Wonderful. And any siblings in the family?
Yeah, we've got two sisters. I've got an older sister, Kara. She's actually today she's at home helping with mom. We look after mom at home.
Yes.
And my little sister, Alice, is actually at USB. She's sort of in HR at USB. Yeah.
All right. Now, who do you think, apart from mom and dad, and if it was mom and dad, then tell me so, but who was the earliest influence in your life?
Yeah, it was clearly mom and dad. They also had quite exceptional siblings. Dad had an older brother. He was actually a full colonel in the army. The army know him very well, Colonel Tawakenrao. He was a very disciplined man and worked hard, was a hard worker. I also had on mom's side, she had one brother, Uncle Joe Vakalala, and he as well was a sports teacher and just a wonderful mentor to have. He taught me a lot of things, and clearly my initial role models have been obviously family. And later on, when I went to QVS, I met a high school teacher, two high school teachers actually. Mr. Rika, his son is actually Netani Rika and Nadar Rika. You probably know Netani well. And also there's a teacher of mine called Mr. Karikaritu. He ended up being principal of Vivia High School and is quite a well-known legendary teacher in our circle of school. And yeah, they were quite influential in my formative years, let's say. Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful to know because those people who influence our lives play a very pivotal role for the rest of our lives because the standard they are the standard bearers who guide us for the rest of our life. Would you agree with that?
Exactly. Can't agree more. Like having people that you can have as points of reference in your life is for those of us who've been lucky to have that. It really helps form your life and form your views on the world as you grow up. Yeah.
Wonderful. Now, Manoa, what would be your earliest memory?
Yeah, just going to the village probably is the earliest memory. Because we lived in Suva, the going to the family, visiting the cousins, and just getting to understand that concept of family and how important it was. That was probably one very early recollection. And both my parents were just hard workers, Shashi, both of them. Most of the time, luckily in our house at that time, we had a lot of cousins
Yes.
staying at home. So they kind of kept me company. Dad and mom were always at work. Yeah, that kind of dawned on me, just having to work hard for whatever you do. Nothing's for free. Yeah, those kind of influences, that were those first impressions that have really helped me throughout my life. Yeah.
Wonderful. Now, in terms of education, what's the background for your education?
Yeah, I suppose you're probably one of those kids that you call overachiever, Shashi. Um, for primary school, I went to Turek, Super Methodist.
Mhm.
Then spent 2 years in Ratu Sukuna Memorial, and then moved to Queen Victoria School and spent the rest of my high school years there. I actually became Dux of the school, head boy, best all rounder at the school, hence the overachiever sort of comment. But again, those were sort of wonderful years for me in this terms of forming your views on life and that kind of thing. Then I did foundation, obviously, at USP. Back and then we didn't have Form 7, and then I was lucky to get a Australian scholarship to New South Wales University. And that's when you had mentioned that I went to New South Wales Uni
Yes.
and studied there for a couple of years. Yeah.
Wonderful background, and never ever be dismayed about someone who is an overachiever because it certainly pays dividends. And in a lot of ways, I guess you were a trailblazer for the indigenous people because of things that you've achieved in your professional life. Speaking of which, let's talk about your professional life. You eventually became a chartered accountant. Who did you
Yeah.
work for, and what was that experience like?
Yeah, thank you, Sashi. I mean, I was lucky enough to sort of to meet the partners of Price Waterhouse when I was still at school by introduction. And so back then there was another gentleman called Sikeli Tuinamoana, who was already a chartered accountant as well in Price Waterhouse. He was a gold medalist from USP.
Mhm.
And so, then I started working on holidays at Price Waterhouse. And I just enjoyed the work. One of the great things about chartered accounting environments is attention to detail, discipline, and just because you're charging customers, you have to account for your time well. So, some very good learnings there, and so that's kind of something that stayed with me right through my career. Yeah.
And this is just a sideline question. Do
Yeah.
accountants have billable hours like lawyers do?
Not you can't beat Richard Naidu and the lawyers. That's they're in a different stratosphere, I think, is the way to put it.
All right. Now, Manoa, you were a senior executive with Fiji Airways for 13 years, where, as I said in the introduction, you held several positions such as General Manager Finance, General Manager Strategic Planning, before launching and running the domestic subsidiary of Fiji Airways, Pacific Sun. How would you describe the experience at Fiji Airways in all the portfolios that you held?
Yeah. Thank you, Sashi. Extremely rewarding, I'd say. Partly because I think Fiji Airways or Air Pacific back then is probably one of those companies which really you almost have a nexus between what you're doing and what actually impacts the country. So that you can actually see it bear fruit. And so we did so many good things at that time. I can go through a few if you want.
Yes, by all means, do that, please.
So basically, one of the things I suppose I should mention, one of the things FGA was at that time, we had just historically come out of a major financial crisis. And so the company culture at the time was quite disciplined. There's a lot of attention to detail, and so that kind of fitted well with my CA background. And so a couple of things we did just very quickly. Sashi, introduced fuel hedging at Fiji Airways. That was through Qantas Assistance and one of the fuel companies. When we purchased the first 737 Sashi, we actually did something very innovative, and we tried to fix the interest rate when it was at its lowest. The facilities at the time allowed us to do that. And so we saved about, I think, off the top of my head, about US 20 million in interest costs, just by doing something that simple, but it actually drove benefit. We talked about the 787 new Dreamliner aircraft. Unfortunately, no fault of Fiji Airways or Air Pacific, the production of those airlines. And so by that time, I had already left the airline, and that was cancelled. But in that deal, we tried to factor everything. So we had even gotten down to things like, if there's another upheaval in Fiji, can we hand the aircraft to another operator, in other words, to Qantas, so they can fly them for us, and so we're not out of pocket. That was the level of sort of risk management sophistication that we actually tried to deal with, and Qantas at the time agreed. So the interior layout of our 787s was compatible with the 787s, and of course, the most rewarding, I think, Sashi, for me, was actually sort of starting Pacific Sun, which is now Fiji Link. And I think our CEO at the time was quite a visionary man, and he felt that in order to try and continue to expand tourism, we needed to have a credible domestic carrier. Fiji Airways had been in domestic aviation before and lost their shirt, and so we were going back in this time, initially to just restore confidence to domestic travel, and then build a viable business. And so by the time I left, we were well on our way. We had to change the culture in that company. We had an excellent team back then, and a lot of the stuff, the things we did, I owe it to them as well. And so that was, and I every time I take a Fiji Link flight, it's like my little baby, even though it's been so many years now. Yeah,
I think one of the best things you did was to incorporate the ATR 42s in the domestic scene, because that is a good airline for domestic flying. Now, I just want to touch on one little thing that you had achieved. The purchase of the 787-900s. You were part of that massive investment for Fiji Airways
Yeah,
of over $1.5 billion at that time.
yeah.
Now, how long do these negotiations take place?
Yeah, in our case, we went through a tender process, Shashi. So
Hmm.
we were evaluating the 787 against other aircraft types, and that was not only 787s, that included other type of aircraft types as well, both in Boeing and Airbus. At that time, Airbus had not fully come out with the A350,
Yes.
which is now around, which is almost a mirror of the 787s. But at the time, the 787 was the carrier of choice. In actual fact, Sashi, in some respects, Qantas watched our selection and then made moves to select their aircraft as well. So, it was an interesting process. It was quite it was easily about 18 months in terms of from an initial analysis. Our board at the time was led by Mr. Gerald Barrett, who
Yes.
is a very well-known sort of son of Fiji, and
Yes.
he led that board well, and everything was by the book. The tenders were transparent. The board was taken through the whole process, and so at the end of it, even Qantas, who always was very conservative, stepped up to sign on the dotted line on quite a big deal at the time for a little country like ours. Yeah.
Wonderfully said. And to our viewers, I will be discussing other pertinent points regarding Fiji Airways and FNPF, etc., with our chief guest shortly. But this is still on his career now. After 13 years with Fiji Airways, Manoa, you left to join the banking sector. What prompted you to leave the airline industry?
Yeah, thank you, Sashi. After, I mean, maybe I'll just share, the thinking by myself. And after 2006, I just felt that the country had made a wrong turn,
Mhm.
and history will say that my initial perceptions were spot on. Because I just, Garusia was actually on the board of Air Pacific, and I got to know him reasonably well. And so when the accusations were bantered about various things, it just didn't sit well with me. And also, my peers and around me had started being asked to leave their roles. We were being slowly exited out of roles. So I thought rather than being pushed, I'd actually jump. So when my CEO, John Campbell, told me that he was resigning, I felt that that was a good exit point for me as well. Fortunately, ANZ back then was looking for local executives in the Pacific countries that may have aspirations for leadership roles in the banking in ANZ Bank. And so the timing was right. So I took the leap in September 2010 and set sail for Papua New Guinea.
All right. And you acted in ANZ country head roles, also in
Yeah,
Solomons and the Cook Islands,
yeah,
and as you mentioned, Papua New Guinea.
yeah.
Considering that you left Fiji, were these roles challenging, considering that you were now heading different Pacific Island countries?
Yeah, like especially like one of my partners at Price Waterhouse told me, my friends who probably watching the show, his name was Dhiraj Hemraj.
Yes.
He said that any business is very simple. You have money coming in and money going out. So if you break it down to those simple concepts, you'll be fine. And actually, he was correct. Like obviously each industry has its own nuances, and you pick that up as you go along. But the fundamentals are still very much the same. And so, going to different countries, I had the benefit of, by the time I went to Papua New Guinea, I'd already worked in Pricewaterhouse in Sydney for 4 years to get my my qualifications as a chartered accountant. So working in another country was not new to me. And because I was going into a Pacific country, it was almost like going to a version of home.
Right.
And so that was a very easy transition for me, to be honest, compared to going to Australia to work in Sydney at the time. It was a lot more easier transition for me. Yeah.
All right. So, chartered accountant, aviation industry, banking industry, and then comes another change. From banking, you then join the Lindhels group of companies as the CFO and general manager, moving to manage the clothing and accessories business sector. How did you find this experience, and what prompted you to join Lyndhurst?
Yeah. Thank you, Sashi. I guess when I set sail for Fiji, and like I said, I'd personally felt that things had gone astray. I kind of hope that maybe one day life might come full circle, God willing, and I'd end up back in Fiji. Yeah? So by the time I finished up in Tonga, in PNG, went to Tonga for 2 years and watched the elections very closely in 18. I just felt I needed to be back home, and so in late mid 18, I told my bosses. I had a very good boss in ANZ, Tessa Price, and I just advised her that I had to go home. I didn't actually tell her why, but I just said I had to go and look after mom, and which was a big motivation as well. Mom was getting on, and secondly, just the desire to make good on my what were my perceptions back in '06. So came home when I was making plans to come home. I met up with Rocco Seru Nambalaro. He's a well-known Tauke as well. You should get him on the show. He's quite an exceptional individual as well, and not political though. But he actually had an opening in the business. So I came in as the CFO and general manager of the smaller companies. He was the head CEO. And so together we helped run the manufacturing business. Of course, manufacturing wasn't too new to me because, as a chartered accountant and being auditing, you do get to look at a lot of businesses. And then I actually ended up spending a bit of time in Rewa Dairy as one of its board members as well. And so manufacturing was not a big step out of the comfort zone. But what it did allow me to do, Sashi, is really appreciate how impactful manufacturing is for Fiji and the lives it touches. That's something I didn't really realize until I got back home. And you have so many great stories that come from the ladies that work in that industry on how employment has helped them build families, send their kids to university, and so I thought like Air Pacific and Fiji Airways had given me a lot of rewarding experiences, but the being at Lyndhurst for the 3 years also sort of was a great learning for me as well. Yeah.
Wonderfully said. And I will discuss Rewa Dairy and things later in the program. And
Sure.
also diversity. We must talk about that today as well, because there
Yes.
seems to be an over reliance on one aspect, and that is tourism. but we'll discuss that later in the program.
Yes.
Manoa, you have worked in senior executive positions for some 32 odd years. Something must have happened for you to take that very big step away from that senior executive role, I guess a role of comfort, a role of safety, for you to make that decision to resign and to enter the political arena, to go with People's Alliance. What was the determining factor in this move to walk away from the corporate world and to enter the political arena? Something must have happened.
Yeah, thank you, Sashi. I think you will find with a lot of the candidates standing this year, it's just a concern about our country and the way it's headed. Um, and surely we have to plot a better way for our children and for our grandchildren. And that was a major consideration for me. I certainly didn't leave for the fortune or the fame. I left because I just felt I have an ability to serve my country. I'll serve as many years as they want me to. But I'm motivated by a belief that our country needs better leadership. It needs strong leadership in finance. It needs strong leadership in terms of leaders that the world can respect as well as the people. That's why I put my hand up and took the jump in March this year, Shashi. And so I'm gainfully unemployed and trying my best to set up the political party so that with the team and with the deputy party leaders and Mr. Rambuka, so that we're ready come the election time.
Something interesting you said, gainfully unemployed. I know a number of provisional candidates who have quit their jobs and have put their names forward as provisional candidates, wanting to bring about a better Fiji, and you're one of them. Hats off to you, Manoa, and to the rest of them as well, because that is such a great task you've taken on board at risk to your own financial sacrifices. So well done. Have a break, have a drink of water. Uh, Folks, you're watching Sashi Singh's Talking Point, and our chief guest today is Mr. Manoa Kamikamica, Deputy Leader and Provisional Candidate of the People's Alliance Party. Please like, follow, and share the SSTP page if you can. I hope you're enjoying the program so far. I am absolutely loving it. To find out a lot more about Manoa, we continue. Manoa, if I may please, let me discuss your political aspirations.
Sure.
Which political party were you first affiliated with?
Yeah, Sashi, I guess because I am, of course, Tauke, and, the main party at the time was SSTP. SSTP was the logical choice for me to come back to in Fiji. And so as soon as I got back, I said hello to a few people. Ended up being invited to be on the Audit and Finance Committee of SSTP. My thinking in that was in early 2019. My thinking was just get in, help out, prove yourself, and then let things go from there. So one of the things we did at the time was there was this massive cloud over the party's head regarding USA funds, use of USA funds. So because of my chartered accounting background and audit background, I just took it upon myself to help wrap it up. There was no issue with the allegations. Everything was kept very well. So it all got sorted. So I guess stepping back a little bit from that, Sashi, it's no secret when Dad entered politics, I used to follow him around back in Fijian Association days.
Yes.
And then had a bit of involvement too in 06. With the Ngarase's party, just helping from Nandi, make sure that the candidates won their seats in Nandi. Back then I was an executive at Fiji Airways. You just disclosed what political party you were trying to help, and nobody said anything. You weren't sacked or you weren't fired. The times have truly changed, Shashi.
They have. They have indeed. They have indeed. Sorry. You mentioned. Sorry, pardon me. Have you finished what you were saying?
I was just saying that times have changed for the worse. I was allowed to do whatever at that time as long as it didn't compromise with work.
Well, that is always a very good demarcation line to have. Work and politics at the best of times don't mix. But when you have a good corporate structure where your employers can allow you to have that political affiliation as a democratic right, it works out so well, and wonderfully said. Now, you mentioned your dad. What influence did your father have upon you in the political sense? Was politics something that sort of was ingrained in you by watching your dad through his years as you were young?
Yeah, like Dad was a bit like Ngarase, politician. He never wanted to actually enter politics, and only did so partly like the motivation I have. It's you're doing it because at the time he felt he could contribute to the country, and so I guess in my case, because I watched him over his career, at the very back of my mind, I felt, at some point, maybe not. I was very comfortable in ANZ at the time. Being an expatriate in the ANZ network is quite comfortable. Just watching him sort of form my views around service, and integrity, being fiscally responsible. I recall him introducing VAT to Fiji, and his logic for introducing VAT, which was very honorable, and he felt that Fiji at the time needed a broader-based tax system. And part of the funds were actually supposed to end up in poverty alleviation, Shashi.
Yes.
To try and sort of help with the marginalized and the unfortunate or the less fortunate. And so he got a lot of into a lot of strife for introducing it at the time, but it's one of the core collectors of income tax for the country, value-added tax. Yeah.
Well, those of us who are old enough to remember your father, we know him as a wonderful gentleman and a great politician, and a very honest one at that as well. That's the hallmark, and that's the legacy your father left behind. Let me move on. How would you describe your time with Sodelpa when you joined them? What goals and aspirations did you have?
Yeah, like I said, Sashi, I was initially was just wanted to join to help out in any way I could help out. I did have a meeting with Mr. Rambuka just to say hello, and in that meeting I did share with him just one aspect which I asked for him to consider, which was the need to start thinking about bringing the next level of leadership through. And he warmly accepted my suggestions. He could have said no, but and so I decided to just help the party and help him in any way I could. and that was where things were. I mean, obviously, I did have political ambitions, but like anything, Sashi, I felt like that if I contributed the right way, and then your words and how you handle yourself will speak for itself.
Now, a number of people have labeled you as a defector. A number of people defected from SODELPA when Mr. Sitiveni Rambuka resigned. Was Mr. Rambuka's decision a causal effect on you to leave SODELPA?
Yeah, like the reason why a lot of us ended up leaving was just and I always try not to cast too much aspersions on my colleagues in SODELPA. We might end up having to work together post elections.
Yes.
I was just concerned with the governance issues at the time regarding Mr. Rambuka's selection as leader. I just felt that if those concerns are being accommodated, we didn't have the right formula to form the next government. So Mr. Rambuka left, and then a couple of us left, not knowing that we'd end up forming this movement. Our first meeting was just 5 of us. We got a piece of paper and wrote down what we needed to do. And then, the youth turned up, the women turned up, and here we are, Shashi. And, it's been I never expected to be responsible partly in forming a political party. Never expected it, but it's been an amazing journey. There's always rooms for improvement, but it's God does work in mysterious ways.
Well, that journey has just begun.
Yeah.
And let me also add, I hope that paper you referred to, that the 5 of you put down points of reference, I hope you've preserved that paper, because that becomes a historical paper in terms of the People's Alliance. I hope you've got that. Now, let me discuss you joining the People's Alliance. What was the greatest motivation behind the move for you to join the People's Alliance?
Yeah, so on resigning from SODELPA, I still felt the urge that we needed to create a new alternative for Fiji. And so, with Mr. Rambuka there as our leader, I decided to join him and form this party. What we felt we needed to do was actually try and create a new way of handling politics in Fiji. Learn from the past, Sashi. For example, we have 3 deputy party leaders at the moment, Sashi, and that's a clear learning from the last 50 years. Politics in Fiji has always been about a strong man, and when that person leaves, the dream dies with him or her. And so we've deliberately tried to ingrain that into the way we've run. We tried to keep the constitution focused so that we can manage issues when they come up. So far we've been going okay. Again, nothing's perfect, but we're trying. And so we had this desire just to create something new. One of the other things we did, Shashi, is we decided to look at the West in terms of our president. If you recall, Shashi, in the 50 years of Fiji politics,
Yes.
the large parties tend to look to the East or the Central Division for their president.
Yes.
And we felt that paying homage to the West and the importance of the West in terms of economy, at the moment, according to the government data that I was going to read out, it's 40% of GDP. And so we approached the Tuinandi, and he agreed. And so that's the kind of journey we've taken, Shashi. We've included inclusivity as part of our party platform. So it's a broad-based big tent party. And hopefully that will become clearer as you see the candidates roll out. Yeah, that's kind of the those things kind of motivated me to join with Mr. Rambuka, and we've all gotten this far, and there's as you said, there's still a lot to do. Yeah.
Your party leader, Mr. Rambuka, has said that in your appointment as his deputy, he recognizes your central role in being one of the party's key architects, and that your calm and steadfast character has helped bring stability during uncertainty surrounding the party's birth. Firstly, let me ask you, what is your role in the People's Alliance as the key architect, as Mr. Rambuka describes you, for the party? What do
Yeah.
you do as the key architect?
Yeah, well, I guess in the setup phase, Sashi, we all banded together. We still had full-time jobs at the time, and we just tried to develop the concept of the party and what it stood for, and then tried to help the party leader get a constitution going, help with getting signatures. And again, like I said, Fiji truly needs a party that says what it means and means what it says. And we felt that we had an opportunity, Sashi, to start something from scratch, that's where we are today. Yeah.
So when Mr. Rambuka spoke about you helping bring stability during uncertainty surrounding the party, was there some type of instability and uncertainty that existed in the beginning for People's Alliance in the formative weeks?
Yeah, no, I guess it's just like anything. Yeah, we as a group we band together to form something. It's a team effort, and like anything, there's always discussions, lively discussions. And so I guess he was probably referring to me just coordinating everything and just trying to be as helpful and as possible in terms of delivering what we did end up delivering. But let me say, Shashi, it's the whole formation of this party. There's so many people that were involved. For example, the late Colonel Lama Lama. He played a big role in terms of getting us across the line in terms of the registration. His central role was to check all the signatures, and that the supervisor was going to look at things with a fine tooth comb. So Mr. Lama Lama coordinated all of that, and he wears his heart on his sleeve. So we always had lively discussions, but yeah, no, when all is said and done, Shashi, we all come at things with different views and different perspectives. And I think, like with anything, if we understand what the fundamental objective is, and in our case, it's to remove this government, we're fine. We'll have the little arguments and the debates, but that's life, and it's healthy to hear everybody's views. But as long as the main focus remains clear, we're good. and hopefully I kind of helped in sort of that from that perspective. Yeah.
How important is multiracialism to the People's Alliance? I do note that my good friend Billy Singh, I believe, is vice president
Yes.
of the
Yes.
party. So, how
Yeah.
important is that for the party?
Yeah. It's very important to the party, Sashi. I always talk about how our chiefs conducted themselves when the first laborers came from India. They were accepting, and accepted them home. The landing in Naslai, the Girmit. So being inclusive, and so it's very important to us in terms of how we approach things. Yeah.
All right, let me set this next scene up. Maybe it'll take me a minute, because
Yeah.
among some of the older sectors of our community, there will be people who knew of the bitter rivalry between your late father, Mr. Kamikamica Sr., and Mr. Rambuka. And by way of background, let me remind people that in 1992, the Fijian vote was split between independents and two Fijian nationalist splinter parties. The SVT, with 30 seats in the 70-seat parliament, was definitely short of a majority, and this set off a struggle for the prime ministership between Mr. Rambuka and the former deputy prime minister, your late father, Josephatha Kamikamica, who was supported by Ratuseka Misese Mara. Now, Sitiveni Rambuka was only able to become prime minister with the help of the Labour Party, which agreed to support him in parliamentary votes of confidence on condition that Rambuka immediately begin a review of the 1990 constitution and undertake reform of tax, land, and labor laws. Now, as history recalls, the unlikely alliance between Rambuka and Labour only lasted until June 1993, when Labour withdrew its support and began an indefinite boycott of Parliament following Rambuka's failure to fulfill the terms of their agreement. Sitiveni Rambuka's government collapsed at the end of the year when 7 SVT members voted against the budget. In the subsequent election of February 1994, the indigenous Fijian vote was again split between the SVT, led by Mr. Rambuka, and a breakaway Fijian Association Party, led by Mr. Kamikamica Sr. The SVT survived Kamikamica's challenge and increased its representation to 31. The Fijian Association Party secured 5 seats, but could only form a government by entering into a coalition with the General Voters Party, which held 4 seats. The question for you, knowing your father's political heritage and pedigree, why did you decide to go with Mr. Rambuka? They were at bitter ends of the political spectrum.
Yeah, thank you, Saji. I guess my parents actually sort of part of the values that they imparted on me. They had imparted values of respect, forgiveness, to me, and I am a very forgiving person, Sashi, by nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so that doesn't mean that I can't be firm, but that's just me. I'm reminded of the Lord's Prayer, and it says, "Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us." And so that's been a guiding light in my life. And then later on, the story of Nelson Mandela has been weighed heavily on me too. Just the character, and he faced worse things than most individuals could bear.
Yes.
So when Dad passed away, Shashi, I decided that their rivalry. We are related as well, Shashi, by the way, to Rambuka. But I decided that their rivalry and their the whatever principles and views they had would rest there. And so since then, I just kept an open mind and watched and observed things progress. Watched Mr. Rambuka very closely during the 2018 elections, and just felt that, particularly given the type of system that we're in, where it's really a presidential system designed to suit one particular person in this country, that he was the logical choice, and because I'd in terms of values, I had gone way past even thinking about whatever pain he had caused for the family. It was it was quite easy for me to join with him. We've had chats on this issue. It's not like a taboo subject, and it's you find strength in forgiveness. Actually, it's not you're not soft at all. It takes a different kind of character to sort of do that. And in Rambuka's case, he's asked forgiveness from everybody.
Yes, he has.
And I can tell you, working with him since I got back to Fiji, he's very sincere. And so joining Rambuka at the time was not a major issue for me, Sashi. Some of my family still ask me about it, and this is the answer I give them. If you believe in a God and you repeat the Lord's Prayer, you have to move on.
Okay. Now, if I may ask you, what do you think your late father would say to you from his grave about your partnership with Mr. Rambuka?
Yeah, I guess he's always allowed me to think for myself.
Okay.
And he always trusts my judgment. But he's sort of he was a father who was quite a large sort of figure in the country. But with his son, and the children, he allowed us to express ourselves and think for ourselves. So, and Mum was a big advocate of that too. So,
Yes.
I'd say go with God and work as hard as you can.
Wonderful. Manoa, what is the People's Alliance message that appeals to you most?
Yeah, I think, Sashi, it's the desire. We are a movement, and it's a movement that just wants to see a genuine change in this country, not only in terms of economic leadership. It's everything. We have regressed so much in this country. It needs a different kind of person to actually stand up and be counted at this time. And then I'm glad you picked up, Sashi, on some of the people's candidates, or provisional candidates in this case, let me say, that you have talked to, that have come across with this attitude of wanting to serve.
Yes.
And all of them, to a T, will tell you, Sashi, that they are doing it because they've heard the call of the country. The people are up in arms and need change, and they are looking for good leaders, and so that's why we've all banded together, the whole lot of us. So we've got some experienced politicians. You got Linda Tambuya and Philly there. What's wrong? And we got the novices like me and about 40 others. It's a good mix, and I truly hope we deliver on what the country wants, which is firm leadership, honest leadership, hardworking leadership, people who have actually proven themselves in their careers and are willing to step forward and make a change for a better Fiji.
In your opinion, how does your People's Alliance Party resonate with the general public?
Certainly, where I've gone to, there's been very positive reception, Sashi. This is despite the numerous handouts that have been parlayed by this government. A lot of people are saying, it's time. 15 years, going on 16 years is too long, Sashi. We just need a refresh and a new leadership. In our case, we have an experienced leader who's led the country before, and he'll be surrounded with motivated individuals who are going to work hard and put everything on the line for this country. And so, the mood is very good wherever we go. Yeah.
All right, have a little break. When we come back, we'll discuss the budget with you. You are watching Sashi Singh's Talking Point, and our chief guest this afternoon is Mr. Manoa Kamikamica, Deputy Leader and Provisional Candidate for the People's Alliance Party. Please share the SSTP page if you can, and this interview with family and friends. Don't forget to like and follow the SSTP page as well. The budget, announced on Friday. Let us now turn our attention to that latest budget that was handed down by the Minister for Economy. Manoa, firstly, let me ask you, what are your thoughts on the budget generally that was handed down on Friday?
Yeah, thank you, Shashi. Firstly, economic manager, or a responsible financial economic manager, you need to set the tone when you deliver financial information. And saying that the Mbula boom is back is very irresponsible. Because, trust me, Sashi, we are still at the edge of the precipice. We are not out of the woods yet by any stretch of the imagination. Now, I'm interesting. I was quite amused in some respects when he said, 12.4% is record growth. Yeah, as a number it is. But you haven't actually returned yourself to pre-COVID GDP levels. So you're not out of the woods. It's like saying to somebody, Shashi, you are being paid $100. Now I cut your salary by 20%. So it's $80. And then I increase your salary at the $80 by 20%. You get 89.6.
Yep.
89.60. You're not back at $100. So, that was my initial impression. The other one, Sashi, which I can talk about in detail, is just it's a bit too late to be talking about economic diversification now. They took over in 2006 and had a wonderful opportunity to restructure the economy so that when it got to a dislocation, we'd be ready for it. If you look at the correspondence, even when we got back to democratic parliamentary rule, every budget, the opposition would talk about diversification. You need to diversify. You need to not put your eggs in one basket. And he used to laugh everybody off. When COVID came, I think he got his wake-up call, Sashi, because even in the small part I played in the BPO sector, we got a lot of attention after that.
Sorry, but let me just stop you for a moment, and I say this with the greatest of respect.
Sure.
Let's look at certain aspects of the budget that was handed down on Friday. Perhaps we can look at some specific examples, and with your wealth of knowledge and experience that you've got in the work that you've done, I want your feedback, your opinion on this. So let's look at FNPF. The
Yeah.
government said that in the budget that they will increase the FNPF employer and employee contributions from 6 to 7% from 1st January 2023 through to 31st December 2023. Now, is this enough, do you think, given that the same government gave huge concessions to employers during COVID, which actually cost the workers of Fiji millions of dollars in FNPF funds? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you, Shashi. I mean, this is the one of the things with this government. They do things with very little consultation. The reduction in the FNPF to 5 and 5 had zero consultation. I'm not sure what the rationale was, because it was quite tragic. You reduced the contributions, and then you forced the members to go and use their own contributions to help support their livelihoods. And then we've been ramping it up. If the Mbula boom is back, according to him, we should be looking at larger increments. Maybe 8 and 8 or something like that. Because certainly, some businesses, Sashi, actually did very well during the COVID time. So those businesses that did very well would actually be benefiting more significantly. So again, this is the problem when you do things unilaterally, you don't consult, and I'm not sure. It's all done in December. In January. And at least it would have been good to have some consultations on it, just so that the employer knew what was happening. Some employers would probably say, they can do it now. I guess they've tried to factor that in, Sashi, by saying you get a tax break if you contribute more. Yeah.
Still on FNPF, Manoa, the government has said in the budget that they will eventually revert the contribution rates to a total of 18%, 10% for employers and 8% for employees in the coming years.
Yeah.
Now, I note that there is no time frame allocated for this increase. What are your thoughts? I mean, is this, again, what some are calling as sweetness being handed out just before elections?
Yeah, you could say that, Sashi, because I would expect, like if he's so confident about the Mbula boom, as he says, then the need to reinstate the pensions of our workers is quite important. A lot of them have actually already drawn from their general reserve account. And so, to me, as soon as businesses recover, they should start making good on payment. I would have rather they included a timeline if they're so firm on January, commit to the balance later on, given that they're so confident on this Mbula boom.
Okay, I'll come back to that Bula boom. Another allocation that I've noticed in the budget is a $16.9 million allocation to the office of the Prime Minister. This seems to be a significant either increase or significant amount. Has there been any news at all in Fiji as to what this allocation is for?
Yeah, I had a good look at the allocation, Shashi, and nothing jumps out as sort of untoward. I thought they might have the construction of the Prime Minister's office in there, but it's obviously not in there.
Mhm.
But he's his portfolio, he's got some other items in there. But certainly the Prime Minister's office was not in the allocations. Yeah.
All right, that will need some more investigations.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to know $16.9 million for his office. What is that for?
Yeah.
Now, the budget summary, Manoa, shows the Rewa Dairy has had duty protection for 10 years. Most of Rewa's supply of milk and other dairy products is being imported because local demand far exceeds the supply capacity from the local dairy industry. It has been announced that the government has been phasing out duty protections for Fiji Dairy in the lead up to the expiration between the government and the Southern Cross Foods Limited on 31st August 2022. What are your views on the dairy industry in Fiji? And I note you were a former board member of Rewa Dairy as well.
Yeah, Sashi, thanks for that. Basically, this government has actually, if you start talking about diversification, I feel the Attorney General has failed the people of Fiji on diversification, and this is a classic example. When we were at the board level, Shashi, the supply of milk locally, dairy milk, was actually 12 million liters. Right now, it's about 4 to 5 million liters.
Wow.
And the protection is coming off. The actual operator, in this case, CJ Patel subsidiary, I think it's called Southern Cross or something, Southern Cross. Now, Sashi, in our time, those duty concessions on milk and milk powder and butter were actually in place to actually allow us to cross-subsidize with dairy production. So, in other words, the profits that were made from the protection of the butter and dairy product, that actually got plowed into, helping produce more milk. From what I can see, maybe the model has changed, Sashi, since when we were there. But if that protection is relaxed, and there's no money going to dairy, the question is, what's going to happen to dairy? What's going to happen to the dairy farmers? This is just my prediction, Sashi. I hope they've done the sums properly, but if they haven't, you can potentially be looking at the closure of the dairy industry. It's that serious. So I hope that they've done the sums and can prove that by reducing the protection, it will not impact the dairy operations, and keep everything sustainable. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we all can't live with hope. Do you think the government of the day has let the dairy industry down? What are
Yeah,
your
I mean, definitely. Personally, I think they have let the country down. Just purely in terms of the reduction in the milk volumes. Sure, there was a disease recently, but the supply is going backwards, and at 4 million liters, the actual, Sashi, back in when we were on the board, the actual supply demand for dairy was 80 million liters of requirement in Fiji. So we were at 12. We were thinking hopefully we can get to 24, or maybe keep going. If that was the case, Shashi, who knows? We could have, in terms of dairy product, probably had been a bit more cushioned when the impact of COVID came, and also when the impact of the the Ukraine crisis hit. So in that respect, Sashi, I believe they have let the dairy industry down.
Do you have any comments on the controversy that surrounded a consultation process undertaken by the dairy board?
Yeah, I mean, Sashi, and I was interested in the Attorney General's being adamant about corruption in Fiji, and I think certainly in terms of that consulting work, the way it was. It played out needs to be looked at. I just feel like we didn't reach a clear endpoint in terms of that whole saga. Yeah.
All right. Now, what are your views on the introduction of excessively generous tax credit scheme, for instance, for movies, etc.?
Yeah. So thank you, Shashi. There's been a couple of things that this government have done that have will actually have impacts on some of the industries, and the tax credit scheme is actually one of those examples. The concession was about 75% of all expenditure in Fiji. I think that's the correct terminology. So what ended up happening is at one stage the government couldn't actually pay back what it owed the movie producers. That, Sashi, is being kept very quiet. It will impact the movie industry. It'd be good if someone in government comes clean and explains what's happened there. But again, not consulting. The privately, when you talk to some of the very experienced chartered accountants, they tell you that 75% was too high. It may well impact the moving industry in Fiji adversely.
Now that this budget has been handed down, what does this do for investor confidence?
Yeah, so thank you, Shashi. I guess I'll touch on the diversification a bit later, because I think it's very important. But I just felt for investor confidence in Fiji, one of the key issues I feel is investor confidence. Why do I say that? A lot of the businesses are scared of this government. That's the hard truth. And so, you need a government that's willing to work with the private sector genuinely and actually get things done. One of the interesting things that I wanted to talk about today, Shashi, was if you notice in the fiscal or the tax measures that were brought out, they're actually making capital gains tax for shares. They're exempting capital gains tax for shares. Now, on the face of it, it looks harmless, but I just thought I'd share with everybody what it actually one of the things that I feel will always be at the back of the investors' minds in terms of investor confidence. In 2021, Shashi, they brought out Act 35 of 2021, and there was an amendment in there for capital gains tax. And I'll read this out to you, Sashi.
Sure, please go ahead.
So that It wasn't. What it said was, this is the amendment. Notwithstanding this Act and the Tax Administration Act of 2009, if before the commencement of Section 3 of the Income Tax Amendment Act 2021, a person is required to pay capital gains tax on the disposal of shares held by a person, not the Sashi, before 1st of May 2011, and the person has not paid capital gains tax, the person is no longer required to pay capital gains tax, and any action or suit for the recovery of the unpaid tax immediately ceases. And second to that, the next amendment, for avoidance of doubt, if a person paid capital gains tax before the commencement of the Section 3 Income Tax Amendment Act 2 of 2021 on the disposal of shares held by the person before 1st of May 2021, the payment of capital gains tax is not refundable to the person.
So if you've paid, it's not refundable. If you haven't paid, well, it's yours to keep.
Yeah, so when the Attorney General talks of corruption, tell him to explain this, Sashi. And let's investor confidence in a nutshell, Sashi. If you have a government that will change laws, in this case, I'm not sure the motivation is for the Attorney General to front up to your show or somewhere and actually say what was actually done in that case. That's why you won't have investor confidence, because people will know that this government has shown through this that it can change laws to suit something. Let's put it that way, Sashi.
I'm glad you've got a document in black and white, so there's no complaint against you coming up in the foreseeable future.
Thank you.
As a matter of transparency, I must say to our viewers, because in just about every program, somebody puts the question up for me as to why I have not invited the Fiji First Party. Viewers and those of you who've been following me from day one, you know for a matter of fact that I have sent invitations to the Attorney General, to his office. I've sent invitations to the Prime Minister's office, and also to a few ministers and even one or two permanent secretaries, to mention. And to date, I have not had a reply, a courtesy of a reply, but my program goes on. I can only interview people who volunteer their time on SSTP, and I can only ask pertinent questions that I can put to my guests. And if any government minister, the Attorney General, or the Prime Minister wants to come on this program, I will accord you the courtesy of giving you equal time as I've given to all my guests to put forward your government's plans and to be prepared to answer questions that I pose to you. Manoa, do you think potential investors are guaranteed transparency when dealing with Fiji, or is there perhaps a potential for a conflict of maybe favoritism and nepotism? Any views on that?
Sorry, Sashi, can you just repeat that again?
Yeah,
Sorry,
do you think potential investors in Fiji are guaranteed transparency when dealing with Fiji, or is there a potential conflict of interest that could arise due to favoritism or even nepotism?
Yeah, Sashi, like that saying, the proof is always in the pudding.
Yes.
In this case, just the way things are being handled, always will be of a concern. The EFL shares, for example, how that was handled. One interesting side point in that, Sashi, was FNPF bought the shares and then got passed it on to the Japanese investors.
Yes.
And then, lo and behold, FNPF, EFL made 99 million or something this year after tax. Fiji Airways, they go and buy Fiji Airways shares. And I can guarantee you they won't be getting any dividends for the next 4 to 5 years at least. Just and it's no secret that perhaps government interferes in a lot of things. Probably is the word to say, and so that will create trepidation with the investor. And if this was made well known, Shashi, they've cleaned this up by making everybody now exempt for capital gains. That's what it appears to do. But the fact of the matter is the truth remains that an investor coming here would have to, particularly a foreign investor, would have to be very confident in terms of the lay of the land at the moment. Yeah.
I will come back very shortly to Fiji Airways and FNPF. However, for now, one bizarre aspect of the budget that I observed was the allocation to the Fiji Roads Authority of just 145,000 Fijian dollars to conduct a pre-feasibility investigation into the construction of the Viti Levu cross-country highway. Minister for Economy Kayum says this road will become one of, if not the most ambitious infrastructure projects in the history of the South Pacific. Manoa, what do you make of this announcement? I mean, surely it's not the stairway to heaven.
Yeah, Shashi. At one stage this year, he was talking about sort of a major development in the north through World Bank funding. I was expecting that to make its way into the budget announcement this year.
Yes.
It hasn't. Look, I mean, to be honest, Shashi, there's so many other priorities that this country has at the moment. And having a road through the middle of Fiji is certainly not one of those priorities. We don't have much to spend, so we need to spend wisely. And so, at one stage, I think there was discussion of having a train around Fiji in previous governments, and again, it's almost in the realms of pie in the sky stuff. And I think we need to ensure that we deliver a budget to our people that's realistic, and we don't spend money on something that may or may not happen. In this case, a road through Fiji, the terrain is quite it's quite challenging, and it's going to be a massive investment. And if you put a toll on it, Shashi, you know what the Fijian people will do? Yes. They'll take the Queen's Road and the King's Road. Nobody's going to go through that stairway to heaven, as you call it.
Well, as I called it, the stairway to heaven. Look, $135 allocation, 145,000 allocation is still a lot of money. Yes. And if this is not going to come to fruition, then it's a waste of money. And Fiji Roads Authority, they've already been allocated a huge amount in this budget to improve infrastructure, and the priorities should lie there. And I'm sure you agree with that. And I guess in our lifetime, perhaps, we will never see this come to fruition. Any comments on that?
That's a very fair assessment, Shashi. Yeah.
Manoa, let us now turn our focus on the latest investment venture by the Fiji National Provident Fund, the FNPF. The FNPF have confirmed that it has invested $93.1 million for a 30.2% stake in Fiji Airways. You were the General Manager Strategic Planning for Fiji Airways in those days. What do you think is the strategy behind this move? That's the first question.
Yeah, I mean I was trying to work out in my head, Shashi, how the shares would have been issued, and it appears that they've just issued them straight from Fiji Airways into sold them directly to here. So the funds are going directly to Fiji Airways, and given it's no secret that they have not been earning enough revenue to service their debt for the last 18 to 24 months. So what clearly it's an exercise to help them with debt servicing, in my view. Given my time at Fiji Airways, Sashi, it's very concerning from a few aspects. One is, an airline is not an easy business. It's so volatile, and to invest in it, we Fiji Airways, as far as I'm aware, up till now has never paid dividends to the government. And that's done for good reasons, actually, because the need to preserve capital for tough times is always a key issue. And so, back from from our day, that non-payment of dividends was there, and it wasn't that bad compared to now handing over shares to our people, the FNPF super fund, who will expect a dividend on their shares. I was trying to get my hands on the financials for 2020 and 2021, Shashi, for Fiji Airways. I can only see the 2019 data there. And so, clearly, if a company is not profitable, you're dealing with a very volatile situation. It's the worst time to make a decision to sell shares, and they've sold shares almost as an afterthought, because there was never an announcement until the CEO for Fiji Airways actually made that announcement in a Fiji Airways function, I believe. So zero due diligence, as far as we're aware. I mean, the CEO of FNPF has actually come out and said that there was due diligence done, but I'd be very intrigued to have a look at that due diligence, Shashi, because disposing of a key strategic asset in Fiji at the most distressed time in its history means that you'll get the worst price that you can get. They ended up buying it for 90 odd million, which amounts to just about 300 million in terms of total value, which seems a bit low in my opinion. That's not without looking at the information, because the detailed information. So a lot of questions, Shashi. Unfortunately, this is the way things are done in this country right now. We need to bring back good governance and good, transparent management. They didn't need to actually disclose the detailed information, but at least be upfront and actually explain what happened. And if you are being pressed to sell assets, just remember, Sashi, we sold EFL I think last year. We're selling Fiji Airways this year. That's telling us something, right? We're getting a lot of funding from bilateral donors. Perhaps there's a link, in order to demonstrate the ability to get funding. Is there a linkage? We don't know, but this is that can be a possible explanation. But yeah, I mean it's very concerning, Shashi, and that needs to change. And we need a lot more transparency and and integrity and in leadership and government. Yeah.
You mentioned debt servicing.
Yeah.
Do you think this investment is actually a sort of a direct debt to equity swap?
Yeah.
Because that's what it would amount to if you're talking about debt servicing. Would I be correct?
Yeah, like I guess I think Fiji Airways does owe some money to the FNPF.
Quite
So
some money.
yeah, so that could be certainly one option. But I think I do recall the CEO saying that it wasn't a debt to equity swap. So in that case, it's a direct acquisition of shares, which will be, I mean, used to service the, it could be actually as simple as servicing the working capital commitments of the airline, given the tough situation it's in.
Okay. Have a drink of
But
water.
they should just say so, Sashi. I mean, like, the airline is very important to all of us, and instead of trying to hide and make it look like a cloak and dagger kind of operation.
Have a drink of water, and let me say that the announcement of FNPF acquiring the Fiji Airways shares came as a side piece, as a side service, as a side dish, as some would say, when the announcement was about the third item that featured in the managing director, the CEO's speech. Now, the CEO has said, the FNPF CEO has said, that the members will gain from the returns. I mean, how realistic is an expectation of this? And when would the members begin to see returns? I mean, I think you've just said not for a few years.
Yeah. Knowing how an airline operates, unless they've found a big hollow log somewhere, Shashi, and they're generating revenue from it, it's going to be a tough road ahead for the airline. We're not back at pre-COVID levels, Shashi. So a lot of those aircraft were bought to service the airline pre-COVID. So that means that the level of revenue that will be generated will not be sufficient to do what it's supposed to do to service its debt. I mean, they'll be doing a lot of things and keeping costs down, but it's going to be a very challenging couple of years for the airline. One famous billionaire said something like, if you want to be a millionaire, buy an airline as a billionaire, and it'll make you a millionaire.
Absolutely true. Yes.
That's how challenging aviation is. And so, Sashi, it's interesting. I was just having a look at. Just allow me to just share this with you.
Please do.
As part of the government supplementary data, it goes into just how at a high level the ROAs for the various sectoral SOEs are. So it's for those of you who might have that, go to page 48 of the Economic and Fiscal Update Supplement. And under transport and infrastructure, I'm assuming that Fiji Airways is under that. It says ROA, return on assets, Sashi, negative 3.31%. And return on equity, negative 7.28%.
Wow. And
I'm
here
not
we
sure.
have.
in the table they've got Fiji Airways as a SOE as well. So I'm assuming that the tables tie, and Fiji Airways is classified as transport and infrastructure. So assuming that the numbers are linked, that's your answer, Shashi.
All right, I've been trying to ask this question, but I will quote your party leader, Mr. Sitiveni Rambuka, who asked this question, and I quote, "How could anyone sell off the shares of Fiji Airways just like that? Because the last time they checked, the government used to own 51% of the airline. So if the Fiji National Provident Fund now owns 30.02% and Unit Trust of Fiji 1.58%, at what price were these new shares sold for, and was an independent share evaluation done?" End of quote. The question that Mr. Rambuka asked was if this was a sneaky way to redeem FNPF debts owed by Fiji Airways. I think you've partially answered that.
Yeah.
And my question now then is, why is there a secret, why does this spell of secrecy? Accountability and transparency just does not seem to exist. Any
Yeah,
thoughts on that?
yeah, no, that's why, in part I'm offering myself up for in this political journey, Shashi. We really need to change the financial leadership of this country. Things are not done the right way. Things are being done without due regard to stakeholders. In this case, the members of the fund. At the very least, there should have been an announcement saying, we're looking at the shares. And it just crossed my mind too, Shashi, if they thought it was such a lucrative investment, why couldn't they do a partial float of the company on the stock exchange? Let
Yes.
every person in Fiji who's not even a member own shares. I'm not sure, but obviously stock exchange requirements have a lot more rigor, and the knowledge becomes, the information becomes public. So yeah, it's astounding, Sashi, how this whole saga was handled. And the thing I get back to is, you're selling a national asset that's been built over since myself and Ayaz were born, right? So it needs to be handled with a lot more due care and responsibility. They did the same thing with EFL. That level of just no concern for transparency is concerning. Yeah.
Now, in Australia and New Zealand, I mean, you've worked in Australia as a chartered accountant. As you know, there is corporate, the words just slipped. There's a corporate structure, there's a corporate safeguard. For example, any company, a public listed company in Australia, has to abide by certain rules, regulations, transparency, etc., with reports, etc. You've been in the corporate sector for 32 long years, Manoa. In a situation where the government of Fiji owns shares in the national airlines, and when the Fijian Workers' Provident Fund acquires shares in the same national airlines, don't you think there ought to be corporate responsibility to make the deal public knowledge so that the people of Fiji, all Fijians, know the entire nuts and bolts of the share acquisition? I mean, there's no need for secrecy. I mean, I know you've touched on this, but it just sort of irritates me that there's a cloak and dagger stuff happening here, that bits and pieces of information is given. So what about corporate
Yes.
need for corporate transparency?
Yeah, yeah, I can only speak of my time in the airline, Sashi.
Sure, I respect that.
And
I respect that.
we were very big on governance.
Mm.
So I recall when we when 9/11 happened, and the insurers actually were gonna shut the airline down at that point in time, because they they didn't want to cover airline risk. The discussions were done. There was a board discussion. There was discussion immediately with government. In the end, there was no issue, but there was a structure. When we acquired even Pacific Sanya at the time, there was a great deal of rigor, put against it, and in this case, Sashi, it's a higher level of transparency required, because you are accepting money from the largest, the only super fund in the country, and a major institutional investor, and so you can still disclose the information regarding that sale and make provide a level of comfort, but that's not happened in this case, which is totally unacceptable in my view. Yeah.
Due to COVID-19 striking the world around March of 2000, as you know, and the world knows, the travel industry faced a worldwide decline. I mean, there was no travel. The world was practically in a lockdown. Airlines worldwide were grounded. Many airlines were not making money at all. Smaller airlines went bust. Millions of dollars of debts were accumulated by several airlines worldwide. Fiji was also affected by the effects of COVID 19. Given all of that, how sensible is this share acquisition, given the crisis that the aviation industry faced? And as you said earlier, we're not out of the woods yet.
Yeah. It's certainly, in my impression, Sashi, it's probably been sold for very cheaply,
Mm.
which is a tragedy, because if you are selling your national asset, you want to fetch the best price that you can get in the market. I can't, maybe this. I can't see that happening in sort of an uncertain situation. So the question that we have to ask is, what is the real reason behind the disposal, or the acquisition of the shares? Because if the ratios on return on assets and return on equity are correct, you've acquired a asset that's losing money.
Yes, you've spelled it out.
Yeah. It's a concern. I mean, I would rather they have bought shares in EFL, so that instead of giving the money to that Japanese company, we like, I think the dividend for EFL was I think it was 30 million, I think, paid to that the foreign company. That
Yes.
would have been good in the hands of our members, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the so called Bula boom. COVID is on the rise again. Fiji has had up to, this is figures up to 14th of July, 79 new COVID cases and total active cases of 576. Australia has issued warnings generally just a few days ago that the next wave of the virulent strain BA5 will affect millions of people in Australia. Now, should the virus spread in the next wave in Fiji, what impact will this have on the airlines industry if another lockdown is imposed?
will be in bigger trouble, Sashi. That's probably the shortest answer I can give. I mean, clearly they've restructured their debt arrangements to try and get out of this part of the pandemic, and we're just climbing slowly out of the first impact of the pandemic on us. And anything that stops the airlines flying again is gonna be devastating, Sashi. Yeah.
We might see the burst of the big boom.
Yeah, I don't know why he chose to use those words, Sashi. Like I said, a good economic manager would have said, look, to the whole country, we're not out of the woods yet. We need to keep things tight, run things tightly. Words matter, Shashi. By saying bulla boom, everybody will be in government circles will think that everything's okay and start spending money. It just happens. As we that manage finances know that setting the right tone is very important. That bulla boom should not have been allowed to have been announced in Parliament if I was the Prime Minister, because you can't afford to be sending the wrong message, Sashi, in our country. We're still in the early stages of a recovery. You can't be tap dancing around and showing cause for celebration. The celebration, Sashi, happens when you pass the pre-COVID levels. There's some suggestion based on the numbers that might happen, but before you get to that stage, you need to keep things very tight. I think it's got something to do with an election year, Sashi, when you need to talk up everything. But as a responsible economic manager that believes in financial discipline and doing things properly, you'd be raising a word of caution that everybody. I can tell you, like all the other private sector businesses, they're not seeing. A lot of them are not seeing a bulla boom. They're seeing a recovery, and they're going to be pacing themselves because they're not out of the woods.
Well, you said, perhaps it's an election year announcement. As you said, a good economic manager would put to the people of his or her country the real truth out there, so that the country knows when to pull up their straps, when to brace for hard times. Now, don't you think that the Fiji government owes it to the nation as a duty, of care, as a responsibility to come clean on where Fiji Airways is as an airline? Because you've mentioned when you searched the company registry, only the 2019 financials had been filed. Question that arises now is, why the non-disclosure? What about the financials for 2020, 2021? Give us, as they say, warts and all. The good, the bad, and the ugly. What's your thoughts on that, Manoa?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the Fiji Airlines is Fiji Airways or Air Pacific is a very special company to the country. The success of the economy right now is very much tied to the success of the airline. And so, given the very hard situation that the airlines faced, there needs to be a level of transparency and disclosure in terms of where the airline is at right now. They owe it to the people of Fiji who have been propping up the airline, Shashi, through the FNPF shares, through the guarantee that government gave of about 450 million to Fiji Airways, through the 75 million that they gave through FDB to Fiji Airways. The people of Fiji have propped up the airline to help it. So the level there is a need to to be transparent and open, and disclose what's happening with the airline. Because the last thing we want to do, Sashi, is wake up one morning and be told that things are not rosy in Fiji Airways. Now that would be catastrophic for our country, a small country.
Absolutely.
And so it's very important. I helped a politician draft a terms of reference for a review of Fiji Airways 2 years ago, Shashi, in Parliament. And he presented it very well. And they laughed it off. This is the type of arrogance that we have. We can't afford that, Shashi. The Fiji Airways we need to ensure that it survives, because it's right now, the way the economy is set up, the success of Fiji Airways ties in very much to the success of the economy, Shashi. And hence the need for greater transparency. Yeah.
I think it leaves, this is my personal opinion, it leaves a lot to be desired when a government takes advantage of its mums and dads, the very people to whom the FNPF funds belong to, and
Correct.
plays with the public's money, so to say, without openly being transparent about how the processes go and what, if any, risks are done, what evaluation process took place, what the board's decision collectively was. There's so many questions to be asked. And let's move to this other thing. Just a day ago, or a couple of days ago, we've been now told that the government is to hand over the management of the AFL to Fiji Airways. Now, a number of questions again can be asked. Firstly, for instance, was there any tender process called in to secure the best and proven management entity? What do you think about this takeover, Manoa?
Yeah, it's hard enough, for those of us who run airlines. It's hard enough keeping one job, or focusing on running the national airline, or an airline per se. There are risks involved with running that airline. You need to manage it responsibly, and so to suddenly decide to hand this over to Fiji Airways and its management without any, sort of due process, let's say, and tender is certainly one of them. It leaves a lot of questions, Sashi. And also, don't forget, Sashi, Fiji Airways is the largest customer of AFL. I'd say it'll be easily 60, 70, 80% of the total revenue of AFL comes from Fiji Airways. So if that's the case, then why would you let a customer come and manage your books or manage your business? It's staggering. I thought when the Attorney General was making the announcement that he was bringing in some offshore operator when he started off that announcement, but with no disrespect to the management of Fiji Airways, I just think, again, when really, Shashi, when you're in government for too long, you start to think that you're not accountable to anybody. And I think that's what's happened again here. They've just decided that, this is a great thing to do without actually, at the very least, have a tender process, and then everybody knows, okay, we need, there's a tender happening for the management of the airport. Again, that's another added level of cost to the airport business. We know that the airport business is a cash cow for the Fiji government. So, Sachi, it's very concerning. Yeah.
Just as a matter of transparency to all Fiji First Party supporters, if you're wondering why there's no representation on this program from anybody belonging to the Fiji First Party, let me assure you I've sent invitations to them. The day they accept, you will know. And particularly to the Minister for Economy, if you'd like to come on this program, I'd love to ask you 101 questions about things that matter to Fiji and about share acquisitions, about the economy in general. And both of us can have a very vibrant discussion in terms of where Fiji is today. Manoa, with this AFL takeover, makes me wonder what is the fee for this management takeover? I mean, again, no transparency. So we're
Yes.
just left guessing. I mean, why? Why this secrecy? And you've mentioned AFL has now become the cash cow. And if this is so, then Fiji Airways will end up owning AFL shares. Conflict,
Yeah.
conflict, conflict.
Yeah. It's you kind of wonder. Your mind starts to run in different directions, actually, on what might happen post this management agreement. Um, it's deeply concerning. I mean, I think at one stage, the last announced profit by AFL was around, the one that I remember was about 100 million. So it's not a bad return on investment. I think things might have, the profits may have come down, Sashi, because they've adjusted the departure tax and a few other things. But it'd still be a profitable operation. So, I just find it very intriguing. I mean, the management fee, who knows how much is involved. That might be a useful start. I was trying to find something aligned in the revenue for. I was trying to see something that may suggest a management fee somewhere, but can't find anything, Shashi. So yeah, it's just another staggering situation that we find ourselves in. Yeah.
All right, don't bother looking for those figures because it just doesn't make any sense at all. I
Yes.
mentioned conflict of interest. I mean, look, Fiji Airways Managing Director, CEO, is also chair of the Tourism Fiji and
Yes.
will now
And
control a
FDB too, Shashi.
FDB and will now get to control AFL. I
Yes.
mean, this just spells of nothing but conflict of interest.
Yes.
And obviously, I don't even want to go towards the board structure where
Mm.
board members sit in the same boards.
Yes.
And why isn't there, excuse me, why isn't there a corporate watchdog to control all of this in Fiji?
Yeah, if you recall, Shashi, the current prime minister had actually one of his mantras when he first took office was one board, one. You'd only have one board membership.
Yeah,
Uh,
well,
so clearly that's no longer relevant. You got I think Hasmukh Patel is actually on the board of AFL as its
yes,
chair at the moment. But you have multiple people on multiple boards, Shashi. And again, sitting on one board is enough work for most of us. It's multiple boards, is a challenge. And, it's, and again, the conflict of interest issue is right there in our faces. And like I said, Shashi, I think this government is just exhibiting the signs of a government that's been in power for too long. I think that's the long and short of it.
well, as
And when it gets to that stage, it's time to move out of the way and let a new team come and run the country, because you cannot have a government that thinks it can do whatever it wants and not require accountability to any person. Yeah.
Well, as they say, you can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time. And I think that people who believe that the public, particularly in these days, are fools, are greater fools themselves, because with social media, with the ability to get news in the palm of your hands with your smartphone, with your laptops, with your computers, people are far more advanced than when we were growing up, so to say. So the sooner people realize that people have a say and people can exercise their rights when it comes to elections. Have a break. We'll move on to discuss other important issues. Have a drink. You are watching Sashi Singh's Talking Point, and our chief guest today is Mr. Manoa Kamikamica, Deputy Leader and Provisional Candidate in the People's Alliance Party. Please like, follow, and share the SSTP page if you can. And to our viewers today, thank you very much for being with us. I certainly hope you're enjoying this very engaging interview with Mr. Manoa Kamikamica. Manoa, I'd like to now discuss the military's role in the Fijian landscape moving forward. The Republic of the Fiji Military Forces, the Fiji Constitution, at Section 131(2), states that it shall be the overall responsibility of the Republic of Fiji Military Forces to ensure at all times the security, defense, and well-being of Fiji and all Fijians. I've raised the same thing with other guests that I've had. I'd like to know your thoughts. Why do you think this clause has been inserted in the Constitution? Because many people suspect that in this clause it has been inserted with a sinister motive in mind. What are your views?
Yeah, I mean the 2013 Constitution was never part of a consultative process.
No.
So the outcome is the outcome of a two-person process,
Mm-hmm.
and so the motivation for why that clause is there is best be answered by the two people that created the Constitution. But that said, I can speak for my family members in the army,
Mm-hmm.
and they all they want is a country that we can all live in peacefully, a country that where everybody is treated with respect and allowed to express their views. That's where I hang my hat on, Sashi. Yeah, that like all of us that just want a new way forward. And like my relatives in the army, we can move ahead and work together. Unfortunately, the Constitution is the Constitution, and it won't be able to change unless there's a 75% majority in Parliament, and then there's a referendum after that, Sashi.
Yes.
But what I can say is, certainly from my view, the people that I know in the army, that we all have the same, aspirations and the same view of the country and where we want it to head. And I think if we all have that in mind, then we'll be all okay, Shashi. But if it had gone through a consultative process, Shashi, that particular clause, I'm sure there would have been some lively discussions being had on that particular clause. But as they say, Shashi, it is what it is, and we certainly, like I said, from where I stand, like a lot of other people, including military people, we just want to sort of make sure that Fiji is okay, and we all live together peacefully.
Having said that, then, what do you think should be the role of the military in Fiji?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, there's a need to have a regional role in the military, and that's hopefully something that can be looked at into. Like, for example, Shashi, I'll give you an example. The naval base here, building a big new naval base here in Lami, just actually close by to home.
Right.
It's going to be massive. 45 million or something is the cost of it. I wonder whether we've actually thought about a regional force to look at the whole of Fiji. The whole of the Pacific. So a Pacific regional force. So there's there's requirements there. At one stage, the force used to get very involved in building, construction, that kind of thing. Yes, there's a function for defense, but the role of the military is quite broad ranging, in my view, and there's certain things that I think that we're not doing right now that we can involve ourselves in. One, Sashi, it just makes us more efficient as well, in terms of utilization of capacity and resource.
Your party colleague, Dr. Chalesi Nakarawa, was a guest in my program.
Yeah.
And when I asked him about the role of the military, one of the things Dr. Nakarawa said was that the RFMF should be outward looking. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, certainly. Like, and that's what I'm talking about. A more regional role.
Okay.
We come. The Pacific comes from has a rich history in seafaring, and so why don't we create a regional force that actually monitors the economic zone across the whole Pacific Ocean? And it can be done smartly too. So you can use drones, you can use speed craft, you can do all sorts of things. It's all managed from Lami here, instead of having a base just for Fiji nationals. You can develop it into a more regional. And I'm thinking too from a cost perspective, Sashi. Everything's expensive nowadays, so you need to also be looking at ways of being efficient in the deployment of resources. And so, if you do it on a regional basis, there'll be cost sharing from all the regions. Hopefully that our donor friendly countries, Australia and New Zealand, can pitch in. And you have a regional force that covers the whole Pacific.
That makes sense. Manoa, how does one get rid of the coup culture in Fiji?
Yeah, thank you, Sashi. It's something I've reflected on a great deal. Since because it just history is kept on repeating itself, and I think certainly the going forward amongst everyone in this country, we've seen the damage illegal takeovers do. There's a desire to move on and just live things under the rule of law and the respect for law, and you live and die by what happens if you provided you follow the law. And so I think more and more, Sashi, a lot more Fijians are coming to that view. I think we need to, something that I've been thinking about, we probably need to do some sort of there's never been a process where everybody sits and talks. You know, Nelson Mandela had the Truth and Reconciliation process.
Yes.
Maybe we need to have one of those in Fiji, Saji, and just talk openly about. A lot of people were hurt, you know, in the '87, the 2000
Yes.
uprising, and then the 2006 one. Still a lot of people carrying a lot of hurt. So,
Yes.
and you know, we need to discuss that openly, and you know, it's up to people like who aspire for leadership, like me, Sashi, to push for that, for the, you know, for the how sacrosanct the rule of law is. And unless the leaders in our country do it, you know, we'll keep regressing. But I can see, Shashi, that you know, the signs are good. There's a lot more people that you know, there's, the desire for, for doing things the right way is very, very strong, Shashi. And I think, you know, if you start discussing it openly, the leaders actually portray lead by example, Sashi, and do the right thing, stick to the rule of law, things will be okay.
Well, that is something positive. You've certainly touched on the right thing in terms of thinking right, consultation, and togetherness. These things all work well, particularly when one wants to reach consensus rather than being a one or two man team. Manoa, I'm going to put something on the screen right now. I hope it works. Let me bring this first one on the screen. This was a screenshot on Facebook put by a local journalist and the Guardian correspondent Lide Mavono, who shared this. And her tweet said, and I quote, I don't know whether you can read that. Perhaps it's bigger on the screens. But I quote, change in the air. This message went up around 3:20 p.m. on the official RFMF media, FB, encouraging military to vote without fear or favor at hashtag Fiji election 2022. Now, the post supposedly from within the RFMF reads, and I'll read this, election is around the corner. You and all your eligible family members are encouraged to vote. Do so without fear or intimidation for whomsoever you feel is the right person to lead your next government. Do not be bought with freebies and handouts. So that's the first post that I've put on the screen. What are your thoughts on this? Did you see the post, by the way?
Yeah, I did, Shashi, and I thought it was interesting, to say the least. You know, I think, you know, in this case, this is a military post, Shashi, but I think all of us need to have the feeling that we are going to vote with our own free will, right? We need to encourage that, Shashi, and not, get people to be intimidated to vote. So yeah, I mean, it was certainly I was going, oh, this is an interesting development, but obviously the post was declared fake.
Okay, let me
After
put
that,
up the next post. Uh, and there's an interesting question that comes to my mind. Um, Now, this is the next post because this came a short time later, and the first post, was removed, and this post went up on Facebook. And the post that we've just put on the screen simply said, if you can read it, the Republic of Fiji
yeah.
Military Forces Commander Major General Rochone Kaluniwai has confirmed that the official Facebook page was hacked. Okay. So that's the post that went up on the RFMF site, as posted by Fiji FBC News. That's where it says. Now, Manoa, I say that Be that as it may, that the page was hacked, if it did get hacked. Now, the glaring omission from the commander of the RFMF, in my opinion, is that there was no mention whatsoever of confirming to the rank and file of the military personnel that they are free to exercise their democratic rights and vote in accordance with their conscience for whomsoever they wanted to. Now, this would have been something, don't you think so?
Yeah, I mean, Sashi, we can't put words in the mouth of the commander, but certainly, like I said, privately with the military people I know, they feel that they want to exercise their rights as individuals to vote. But obviously, the commander has chosen not to put out a statement as you suggested, and we respect that. But yeah, I mean, I think Sashi, like I'm very optimistic of the mood in the country. People want to do the right thing and vote for a different kind of leadership and a different kind of government. And so the from what I see on the ground, Sashi, that's certainly where I get my confidence from. That come the elections, when it does come, the voice of the people will be well and truly heard.
Okay, Manoa, which now brings me to our next subject. Come the elections, with the way complaints are flying left, right, and center, just makes one wonder how many provisional candidates will actually get to contest the election. Let's now discuss, first of all, the 12-page letter of complaint written to the Supervisor of Elections by the Fiji First Party General Secretary with complaints against the People's Alliance Party, your party, and the National Federation Party. Firstly, let me please ask you, what you think is the motive of the Attorney General and Economy Minister to make such a complaint?
Thank you, Sashi. I thought I'd answer this question in a couple of ways, and just allow me some time to go through it. The first thing I want to ask the Attorney General is, what is he afraid of? What is he afraid of? I mean, I can put my hand on my heart on behalf of People's Alliance, and I'm sure the other leaders of the other parties can do the same, and say, we are not in this to falsify records or defraud people. This is for the heart and soul of the country that we're fighting for. So let me just start off with that question, Sashi. The second thing, Sashi, is there was a good report that was put out by the International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance. It's called the IDEA. That report actually summarized, Sashi, the level of fundraising in the last election, or what was spent by the parties in the last election. Guess how much Fiji First spent in the last election, Sashi?
Maybe around about maybe $10-16 million.
Well, they reported 6 million in their accounts.
Okay.
6 million. Guess how much Sodelpa spent in the elections?
Maybe about $1 million.
1.3.
Okay.
NFP did 600,000. The other smaller parties collectively didn't even reach 130,000.
Wow.
So my point is, this level of complaint against fundraising, it's a known fact that it's harder for the smaller parties to raise money. Ayaz knows that he can get money at a flick of a finger, right?
Yes. Just at a cocktail party, can raise millions of dollars.
Correct. And so what is he afraid of, Saji? So Delpa with 1.3 almost beat these guys. as opposed to 6 million, right? So that's my posture with this level of hounding, Sashi, is the proof is there. They are collecting a lot of money. I notice now they've got M-Pesa and MyCash and GoFundMe links on their website. So they'll probably go on now, Sashi. So it's quite astounding. Of course, Sashi, it's the law, and they've certainly fired a shot at some of us. NFP's responded on some of their issues. We are preparing a response on our issues, but we've sent a note back to them on their advertising as well, because they're not innocent either, or they have the same issues on their advertisements as well, Sashi.
So your party, the People's Alliance, you've actually have you actually lodged a formal complaint with the Supervisor of Elections?
Yes. That was sent by our secretary.
All right, and the basis of that complaint, was it on false advertising? Was it?
It was just the law is quite clear. Like it says with campaign material you have to acknowledge the person advertising and the party the address, that kind of thing.
All right. Yes.
They were not doing it on theirs, so we've highlighted them. And trust me, Shashi, we won't. We'll fight back. We're not gonna take this lightly. Can I just share something, Shashi, from that idea report? Because it's quite important for the viewers. That report actually had 23 recommendations. Let me just say the supervisor elections tried to shoot it down, saying it wasn't statistical, but the report was never meant to be a statistical report, Sashi. It was a comparative analysis of best practices in various countries, right? So you don't have a statistical sort of way to handle that kind of analysis. Some of the things that, interestingly, that report had, Sashi, was there were 23. I'm only pointing out 5.
Yes.
Appointment of the registrar is truly independent and neutral. That was one. The second one was the non-recourse under the cost of the Court of Disputed Returns. It talks about PPR 2013 is excessive, and the fact that there is no recourse to the courts when sanctions are imposed is a concern. That was one. The third one was there is a disparity in the ability of parties to fundraise and spend money, Sashi.
Yes, big disparity.
Yeah, and so again, I think what IDA was trying to say is, why are they so afraid? They actually recommended expenditure controls be put in place. They talked donations to individuals, and they did say that maybe government should look at corporations making donations, because in fact at the end of the day, when a list of contributors is shown, the company gives money to father, mother, auntie, uncle, daughters, nieces, nephews to get contributions in. So it was like just a veneer of a law. It's so those were kind of the five things, Sashi, that report that showed. And so all this, I think they're certainly coming at all the parties in terms of breaches. We'll certainly be prepared with the responses. But let me say that the way the laws are set up, it's you have to be on your toes. Actually, even after 30 days when you are created, you have to actually lodge a financial statement after 30 days. Actually,
Yes.
so it's quite tough. Someone joked to me that it's hard. It's very hard to keep in compliance, and he's not too far from the truth. And I thought, in a democracy, you allow people to thrive and parties to participate in the process. It's not the case in Fiji, unfortunately, Sashi.
Have a drink of water. I think you need to soothe your throat a bit. You're watching Sashi Singh's Talking Point, coming your way live on Facebook and on YouTube. Our chief guest this afternoon is Mr. Manoa Kamikamica, the deputy leader and provisional candidate for the People's Alliance Party. Please share and like this page if you can, and do follow the SSTP page because you will be getting all notifications of future programs as well. I really don't want to talk too much about the supervisor of elections for fear that there may be recriminations on your good self. So I think I'll leave certain discussions out for now. Let's just move on and say that perhaps I can ask you this question, and I'm asking for an opinion only.
Yes.
Under the guise of budget consultations, the Attorney General and Minister for Economy traveled the width and breadth of the country, spruiking his budget. Now, some people have seen this as a full on campaigning stint. How did you people in the People's Alliance Party view this theatrical performance?
Yes, Sashi, we know how consultation feeds back into a budgetary process. The fact that the consultations were happening 1 or 2 weeks before the actual budget submission, it's quite an intriguing approach. Normally, you take submissions from everybody, you spend some time going through them, and then you come up with a budget. So this round of visitations could have been happening some time ago. And it's happening, close to elections. Some of the were more like pulpit presentations. And so, yeah, Sashi, but this is the MOE, the modus operandi of the current government. Clearly, it's a way of getting their message across. They're the government of the day. And so that's the way they choose to run things. The people of Fiji are watching, Sashi. They'll have the final say.
All right. Now, the Fiji First Party have lodged 2 sets of complaints, and the National Federation Party's General Secretary has come out with a very scathing report and presented facts that showed that that particular video was doctored, etc., all taken from 2018, and it was not in context. My question to you is, if the Fiji First Party's complaint is found to be wanting, do you think the supervisor of elections could take appropriate action against his very own minister? Don't have to answer that if you don't want to.
Sorry, Shashi. I think I'll park that one because it's the supervisor of elections.
Don't, because I don't want you to get into any bother. All right. People have heard my question and people can come to their own conclusions. Now, you've lodged, the People's Alliance, you've lodged your complaint. When do you expect an answer?
Yeah, certainly I've always found, in our case, the supervisor and the officer that handles our party affairs, has always been quite responsive. Our registered officer Sashi is the Secretary General, Mr. Nditoka.
Yes.
I'm sure you'll hear from they don't well, as far as our dealings with them, they're very responsive, and so I'm sure they'll communicate once they've read our complaint.
All right, now let's move our focus at this stage to the Pacific Islands Forum meeting that was held in Suva just last week. Fiji hosted that. How important a meeting was that for Fiji as a nation?
Yeah, as a meeting of forum leaders, very important, Sashi. As you know, the behavior of our government is sort of a subject of concern for most of our island brothers and sisters.
Yes.
This is not the Fiji that they once knew. Just to be quite frank, privately, when I was in the region, you'd hear very remorseful comments about how Fiji seems to have moved away from its traditional role in the region. And I speak specifically about what they've done with the USP. It's actually quite it's hard to understand, Shashi, because even the council has agreed that everything's okay, that Dr. Aluwalia should be is okay to continue in his role, and yet there is absolutely no regard for that decision. And then the non-payment of funds, I'm told it's at 70 million now, or 73 million, or 72 million. So it's going to keep on growing. I didn't see any disbursements in the budget for it as well. I'll have another look after this, Shashi. But clearly, it's a regional. It's a regional disaster in terms of that particular for Fiji. I hope the Prime Minister realizes that he needs to step in and do the right thing and send those funds to USP. I mean, it's affecting the students at USP and the quality of education there. It's really, you can still express your concerns if you're not happy, but not sending what is your obligation to a regional institution. It's probably the best story of regional cooperation in Fiji, Sashi, and we should be all proud of that. Here we are being totally arrogant, I guess, is probably the best word I can use, Sashi, without being impolite. It's just it's not good.
Well, the Prime Minister of Samoa, Fiame Naomi Mataafa, her message on the USB saga was loud and clear. That the other Pacific Island countries were contributing funds actually towards Fiji students. And here was the Fijian government holding back funds, as you say, despite the council finding that there was no impropriety. Now, you've addressed it very nicely as to this whole saga. My question is, how much of harm do you think is being done to the Fijian students with the government withholding funds?
I mean, it's quite a significant sum, Sashi. So it has to be impacting the way the universities run, and the quality of education. I know, knowing the guys at IDSP, they'll do their best to keep things moving. But you have to pay, like, put aside the regional part of it, Sashi. You must pay what you owe, right? There's a fundamental value, like as a government. You need to go front up and pay what you should pay, irrespective of your personal opinions. Or it's not a case of winning or losing. It's a case of what happened. Like the question, what worries me, Shashi, is this: what happens if the Micronesians decide, okay, right, we're gonna go to some other country and ask them to create our own university? What's going to happen then? It's going to be a disaster for regional cooperation in the Pacific, and I cannot understand why this government cannot see it. Surely, the government cannot be run by one person. Somebody needs to step up and make the decision to pay that money, because it's just wrong. It's terrible. Yeah.
Well, let me add another thing. And again, this is my personal opinion, and by no way it reflects what you are saying on this program, my personal opinion. And that is that on matters of national importance, normally it is the prime minister of the country who fronts up to the nation and lets the nation know exactly what are the areas of play, what's the repercussions, etc., and why the government is doing things the way they are. In the University of the South Pacific saga, the prime minister is absolutely mute on this, and it just does not augur well for the country. Talking about the USP funds, Manoa, in the budget just handed down, the Minister for Economy has announced that tertiary students will each receive $180. Now, my question is this a way of sidestepping the USP grant saga, perhaps? Or do you think this is genuinely an assistance to tertiary students?
Yeah, again, like when you read his speech, he does say that the largest voting demographic is in under 40, and under 30. I think it's about 40% or so. Can't remember offhand, but yeah, it's obviously a political freebie, Shaji. Maybe it will placate the students. They've piled on a lot of good scholarship opportunities as well. But I hope the students can think about not only those opportunities, which will be there irrespective of which government comes. Let me point out. There's a greater principle here, which is a government being irresponsible and having no due regard to a relationship that's built over 50, 60, 70 years, and just decided not to play ball. And I'm worried, Shashi, that over time Fiji will lose its glow as the big brother kind of role. That would be an absolute tragedy, Sashi.
Manoa, during the Pacific Island Forum meeting this week in Suva, it was very notable that the opposition parties were not invited to participate in any of the events. Now, do you think the Fiji government should have invited the opposition leaders, at least, to participate in some of the formalities? A bipartisan approach,
Yeah, Sashi. I mean, like you'd think that that would be a consideration. Unfortunately, they have chosen not to. I guess the cynical part of me, Sashi, says that the timing of the meeting in Fiji next to an election as a bit of sort of using the opportunity to sort of project the party and its leader, the Fiji First and its leader. So the hope of getting other opposition guys around there, including our leader, would probably be a remote possibility, just putting it lightly. But
All right.
yeah, I mean a bipartisan function, or even just an opportunity. I know the National Federation did reach out to the Prime Minister of Samoa as well, which was great. And this government, it's an absolutely no chance that would have happened.
It just seems the word Vuvale is only used when it suits some people and at
It,
different times.
it appears so, yes.
Manoa, let me now shift the topic to discuss Etho-K issues with you. What, in your opinion, are the main issues facing the Etho-K in Fiji today?
Yeah. Thank you, Sashi. Right now the mood on the ground is somber. A lot of disappointments, actually. The reason I say that is there's a feeling that the concerns of the largest populace and the first occupiers of the country is not being heard. You may recall Sashi Nikonawe Kula in 2014 put out a list of laws that he felt were starting to unravel things that involve the Tauke. That list that we have is now at 39 laws.
Okay.
So there's that level of concern. The other one, I think that it needs to be a national discussion, Sashi. I personally think around the economic mainstreaming of the Tauke. How do we achieve that? Right now we have 81% of the land, maybe now 80 something percent of the land, but zero. Very few business people, and generally in countries where there's resource owners, the resource owners actually drive economic activity.
Yes.
And it's not a racial discussion, Shashi. It's a economic discussion, in my view, and we need to have that discussion as a country and agree to a way forward. Because certainly my dad and I, we felt that if we want to achieve long-term stability, Shashi, in this country, in Fiji, we need to try and get all races, all ethnicities to participate in the economy. That's very important. Again, that's just the way things are. At the moment, there's a feeling that that aspect has not been addressed. So it's something that I certainly will try and discuss openly, and we need to have that open, honest conversation with everybody.
That would lead me to believe that a lot of consultation should take place. Would that be
Exactly, sir.
correct?
Yeah, it's starting to happen in dribs and drabs now. You're starting to see business people link up with landowners and start doing land developments, that kind of thing. I always think about the landowners in Nausori. These guys own the whole of Nausori towns, actually.
Yes.
The Nausori village. Why aren't these guys? Why aren't that Vanua, one of the richest families in Fiji, or Vanua in Fiji.
Manoa, yes.
Yeah, what's stopping that from happening? So we need to frame that conversation and kind of start discussing it and agreeing on actions. Because I think ultimately, Sashi, therein lies, where we need our country to go, and hopefully, we can look at it openly. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Now, the Fiji First Party dismantled E-Toke institutions like the GCC, the Great Council of Chiefs. Would you like to see the GCC re-established, reinstituted?
Yeah, the GCC, Sashi, there was a fund created for the GCC and its maintenance and upkeep. It's called the Itaoke Trust Fund. That fund is still operational at the moment, and certainly our leader and certainly myself, we'd like to see the GCC come back. If you reflect, Sashi, on the historical significance of the GCC, even post pre-colonial days, they were quite fundamental in actually allowing land to, their land to be offered up into the NLTB to allow for economy and economic activity to take place. And that required a lot of trust and faith in the government of the time. So yeah, I certainly feel that it needs to come back. I think it'll be up to the chiefs of this country to decide what form it takes. But certainly, the money is there at the Tauke Trust Fund, Sashi. It just requires the political will to do it.
Okay, you've answered my next question because you said it's up to the chiefs of Fiji to see how they'd like to be constituted.
Yeah.
I believe
I'm a commoner, Sashi, so it's not for me to decide.
I understand that your party leader, when he appeared on this program, said that perhaps the way forward would be for the august body of the GCC to be something like the House of Lords in the
Yeah.
UK. But Mr. Ramuka did say that that was something that was to be explored when the
Yes,
time came. Right
correct.
now, of course, the focus is on the elections and what
Mm,
happens after that. Excuse
correct.
me.
Yeah.
Um, there was once so much of hoopla about the mahogany industry. And, it was said that that was going to really uplift the indigenous communities.
Mm.
Whatever happened to this?
Yeah, I think, Sashi, since my return, I've had some involvement in the mahogany industry. And there's certainly an opportunity to create a multi-million dollar business from the current mahogany forest that we have. Um, this government's chosen to not actually explore that actively. I'm not sure why, through the Fiji Hardwood Corporation. I'll give you a classic example, Sashi. When I first got here, we were told that there was a major market for mahogany in New Zealand. All it needed was the certification of the mahogany forest, and there was a big decking market in New Zealand for the taking. I came in 2019. I am now in 2022, Sashi. That certification has not happened. So here we are.
Well, okay. Let me look at another sector here. Sometimes it seems that all the eggs sort of go into one basket and there's over reliance on one particular aspect of the economy or one particular aspect of of uh, economics, so to say. The business processing outsourcing (BPO) and
Yeah.
ICT sectors were areas at one stage it was thought that could have been developed in Fiji to a huge level,
Mm.
thereby creating a lot of employment and getting money into the country. Because Fiji being so close to international markets like Australia and New Zealand, and the biggest factor was that in Fiji, practically everyone's educated in the English language. So English was not a problem. Why do you think this sector was so slow to take off?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, Shashi. I mean, I know for a fact that Mr. Ngarase was looking at BPO ICT operations with Atma Maharaj in '06.
Mhm.
That's how far back that they were looking at it, and nothing got done till I think 2000, and I think the first discussions were 17 or 18. And now I was partly involved in helping sort of with the setting up things at the council, the BPO council. So now we have an opportunity to harvest that what I consider a lost opportunity, Shashi. Just imagine if the BPO sector was around was created in '06. We had Pacific Operations come into the country back then. Mindpearl is a large operator, but somehow or other, the focus of government at the time was not on that sector. Because of COVID, it now is well and truly in the center of mind. But personally, Shashi, it's an opportunity that we could have used to kind of help us in this current scenario. Now it can potentially, Shashi, it's a large opportunity. When we looked at it, the Australian outbound outsourcing market is about 38 billion
Yes.
Australian, US.
Mm.
And if we got 5% of that, Shashi will be doing very well. And 2006 or 7 or 8 or 9 would have been pretty good by now. We would have when the dislocation happened with COVID, we would have a vibrant BPO sector operating. The sector has a lot of the good thing about that sector is it's got a lot of opportunities to employ youth. A lot of my nephews are already working in the BPO sector, which is great.
Mm.
But when you think you know everything, Sashi, maybe sometimes it takes time for you to realize that there are things are low-hanging fruit around you that can actually deliver stuff, think good things for the country. I think that's happened in this case with the BPO sector. I'm glad that the Attorney General is now paying the attention that that it needs now. But really, there's a lost opportunity in those years when they first took over government.
Okay. Manoa, as we head towards the finish line, let me get your thoughts on the People's Alliance and the NFP coalition post election. What are your thoughts about the merger post elections?
Yeah, certainly, Sashi. There's a willingness to excuse me, Sashi. There's a willingness to work together post elections and and deliver a good government for this country. Um, we have been working together over the last couple of months, and we certainly it's received a lot of positive feedback, and it's prompted other parties to look at working together. which is great. And it's certainly something we need to keep in mind, particularly with the multitude of parties that are in the political fray right now.
Yes. Okay, and how do you perceive the public response to the planned merger between the People's Alliance and the NFP?
Yeah, under this arrangement, you can't do anything until after elections. But obviously, we have the history of 99 Sashi, that people keep bringing up. I think the political landscape is a lot different now.
Yes.
Like I said, like certainly from the People's Alliance perspective, the notion that our chiefs always work together with everybody is something that is a value that we should all embrace. And I think certainly at a personal level, there's a good working rapport there with Richard and everybody else, Mr. Prasad. So it's it's a good fit.
What does Mr. Sitiveni Rambuka bring to the table?
Sorry, sorry, I lost you a little bit there, Saji.
I said, what does Sitiveni Rambuka bring to the table?
Yeah, the experience of running a country before Sashi, and the wisdom and the experience that he has as he's not only run the country, he's been a peace envoy, he's done all sorts of things in his life. So and he's really a statesman in my humble opinion, Sashi. And that's what the country needs, and doesn't need an iPad to have discussions. I had a discussion with him with a delegate from West Papua just on Saturday, and I should share this story. You probably won't like me sharing this, but I'll share this story to the public so that you get an understanding of the quality of Mr. Rambuka.
Please do.
He came in with a Sevu Sevu grog. This is what the Prime Party leader brought, and 2 whale's tooth.
Okay.
So we sat on the ground on a mat, and he presented that to the delegate from West Papua.
Wow.
And he explained to the delegate the importance of what that meant.
Right.
That's the caliber we're dealing with, Shashi. You really can't say more when you see that kind of statesmanship. I think the young man was quite taken aback. The West Papua struggles are real, and we People's Alliance would like to do all we can to help them achieve what they dream of. We at one stage were also colonized, Shashi.
Yes.
And so that's just that's what he brings to the table, Shashi. He's an authority on everything. He jokes that because of his years, he knows everything, and he's probably not too far from the truth, actually.
Well, I was going to say, actually, he most probably does because of the years of experience he's got.
Yes.
And that story that you shared just goes to show the humbleness that he possesses in actually doing the actual Sevu Sevu himself, which shows the hallmark
Yes.
of the man he is. Flip the coin.
Yes.
Your post-election merger partner would be the NFP. What does Professor
Yeah.
Biman Prasad bring to the table, in your opinion?
Yeah, clearly he's an economist, and so he'll have strengths in terms of economic knowledge. He also he'll bring that to the table, and on our side we've got quite a few people that have financial skills as well. We've not sure whether you know Mr. Cecil Brown. He's
Yes,
also
former
running.
banker.
Yes, so
Yes, yes, yes. I
there's
know
a
Cecil well.
few there's a few big hitters on our side as well, Sashi. So,
Hmm.
and that's what this is all about, Sashi. Bringing together people who love this country, who want to do the right thing by this country, and want to, set a new path for this country. And this we can't do it on our own. One or two men government, Sashi, is going to be history post the 2022 election, in my opinion.
You mentioned Professor Biman Prasad's prowess as an economist. As a human
Yeah.
being, what do you think he brings to the table?
Yeah, I mean, he's a lovely man as well. Good family man, great values. He's always giving me little snippets of advice, which is valuable. So
Hmm.
yeah, and the again, he will add a lot of value post election to us working together. Yeah.
Wonderful. At this juncture, I have a viewer question, if I may. The
Sure.
question is from one of my viewer who wants to remain anonymous. If the People's Aligned wins and forms government, Sitiveni Rambuka will take on the office of the Prime Minister, and that is the practice and convention where the leader of the winning party takes on the top job.
Mm.
I have to ask you, is there a plan for you to take over from Mr. Rambuka during the next term of Parliament if your party wins? Is there a succession plan in place? That's the viewer question. In other words, I guess
Yeah, thank you,
the
Shashi. I
question
mean,
is, hmm, sorry, I was going to add to that. In other words,
yeah.
and you may answer it whichever way you feel best. In other words, will Mr. Rambuka see out his full term if the People's Alliance win?
Yeah, Sashi, when we started off the party, I think what we wanted to do is create options in terms of leadership. And so that's why we have 3 deputy party leaders. So, for me to sit here and say, yeah, this is what's going to happen is premature and probably not the right thing to do. I think what the country needs to be comforted in that we have a group of very capable people that are going to be stepping up at this election. What happens post-election? Like I said, my prime motivation at the moment, Sashi, is to remove the Fiji First government. Thereafter, I'll do anything the party leader wants me to do. And then we'll see how things go from there. He wants to, sort of obviously look at future leadership as well. And that's something, for example, we've got the young lawyer, Philly Wassarongo, that's around as
Mm,
well. He's quite capable. He's been on your show.
yes.
Charles is quite an amazing individual as well, whom you've interviewed. So, the great thing about this movement, Sashi, is, I think the party leaders mentioned this to me a couple of times. It's the first time, he's actually seen, a lot of people that have, career people wishing to make a difference, and sacrifice a lot to stand up and be counted. So I think as a country, we should be happy that there are individuals. I'm sure there'll be individuals similar in NFP and the other parties, but that is a good thing because our country desperately needs good people to lead our country.
Now, in the event that there is a change of government in Fiji in the foreseeable future, come the next elections, given what the country has experienced with the Fiji First government, and we've spoken about things not being transparent to the people of Fiji, do you think there ought to be a commission of inquiry set up to look at a number of anomalies that have perhaps taken place in the governance of this particular government?
Yeah, I think as a responsible government, Sashi, we certainly need to review things that are of concern to the country as a whole. So many things, Sashi. Education system, health system. There's a long list, and so
Sure.
if it's looked at in the prism of Sashi as us trying to set things right, as opposed to witch hunts, I think that'll be a good platform to go on. And so there's these deals. I'd like to understand what happened to the EFL deal, partly because the Japanese partner who like when you have a strategic partnership, Sashi, which includes a foreign player, you'd like to think that the foreign player would bring expertise and skill and transformation into an organization, right?
Yes.
It's very quiet in EFL at the moment, Sashi. So I'd like to understand that. So what brought about the deal? Is there a way of leveraging the strategic partners' experience and expertise so that we can build a better EFL? We still have a lot of power cuts happening around the countryside. Now they are just power cuts for power cuts' sake. You very rarely get a note or a message. So that's one area, just as an example that needs to be looked at. But like I said, Sashi, it must be looked at with good intentions, not a witch hunt, because that's certainly not the way People's Alliance thinks.
Wonderfully said. I like the fact you've used the word not a witch hunt. Manoa, do you think, given what the country has experienced for the last 16 years, do you think that if there's a change in government, the new incoming government should incorporate a people's forum to have a session where you have people from industry, people from the unions, people from the private sector, people from government, all come together as a think tank to identify issues which are critical to Fiji, first and foremost, and which can then form the basis for, remember those 5-year plans we had, etc. Do you think
Yeah,
something like that is important to have if there's a change of government?
absolutely critical, Sashi. It's actually a platform that we are running on as well. We'll even bring back the National Tripartite Forum
Yes.
and include the unions as an actual equal member of that forum. There's power in consultation, Sashi, and doing things together. For some reason, we don't quite see that in this current operation with the Fiji First government. So, in the budget, Attorney General talks about working with the private sector. You need to be genuine if you talk to the private sector, and be willing to listen to what the private sector has to say as well. So yeah, it's absolutely critical from the People's Alliance standpoint, Shashi. Party leader is very supportive and we'll make sure that idea starts. We in our 100-day plan that's already in the mix. Yeah.
Wonderful. What is the People's Alliance message to the public as opposed to your message? What is the People's Alliance message to the public?
Yeah, the People's Alliance message is go and vote. Please get your card updated. Please find out where you're going to vote and make sure you go and vote. If you don't want to vote for the People's Alliance Party, just don't vote for the Fiji First government. And Sashi, if I can just make one more point.
Yes.
So Delpa had 181,000 votes, I think, in the last election. The people that did not vote was 176,000.
Wow.
So the message from the People's Alliance is, let's try and get 100% voter turnout on the day, and let's express in one single message how we feel about the way this country is being run, and create a new pathway for Fiji.
Okay. And now, what is your message to the public?
Yeah, no, I think, at a personal level, I think, I feel that in terms of my experience, Sashi, I offer a new way of managing the country's finances that has integrity and good governance and transparency as things that are critical. The business of doing things with zero consultation will no longer be a thing of the past. There's so many issues, Sashi, when it comes to the economy that we need to fix. We will reach out to the private sector, and when we reach out to the private sector works well when you give them a framework and then you move out of the way and they execute. Not get micromanaged on your way to completion. That's the difference we bring. And the last message, Sashi, is I've been urging when I'm attending these political gatherings, urging everybody to look closely at the candidates of every single party, and especially the women. We need a lot more women in political leadership. That's something that's been lacking in the past. We have a lot of good quality women in our lineup, and I invite everybody to have a look at them. And the only way we'll get change is by going to vote at the polls. 100% attendance, Shashi, on the day.
That is an ideal figure that you're looking at. But
Yes.
certainly, people of Fiji should realize that it's very, very important to exercise your democratic rights to vote. Voting in Australia is compulsory. We go to vote, and some of us relish the fact that we're allowed to vote. So make use of that. You mentioned 170 odd thousand people not voting. Is a very sorry state of affairs.
Yes.
So that is something for the people of Fiji. Register, make sure you've changed your voting cards, and turn up on that voting day. No picnic if it's on a Wednesday, no picnic. Go and vote first, and then you can relax and wait for the results. Manoa, let me tell you that in some ways, I have come the full circle today. I have had the pleasure of, and the privilege of interviewing your late father, Mr. Joseph Kamikamica, when he was the Minister of Finance in Fiji. And today, I've had the pleasure of interviewing you for the very first time. I hope it won't be the last. Do you have any closing remarks on today's SSTP interview?
No, thank you, Sashi. I think just thank you for the opportunity to actually be on the show. to me, the biggest takeaway message from the budget is, after 16 years of almost 16 years of Fiji First rule, they failed us because they didn't diversify the economy enough, and so here we are, still heavily reliant on tourism, and we're scrambling like mad to try and build other sectors when this should have been done 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So that's actually the message for me in this budget. The other one is it's clearly sort of a budget that has more freebies. And I'll give you this. I was just having a look at the expenditure levels from pre-COVID, Sashi. This is just to give you an idea of how this government operates. In the actuals for operating payments in 2018-19 was 2.4 million. Here we are in 22-23, recovering from COVID, and we're spending 2.6 billion. That's just in numbers, and obviously there's inflation and whatever in between. But just the capacity to manage if fiscally responsibly, I don't think this government has. The other thing that I find quite amusing, Sashi, is they've got in the budget, they started talking about their fiscal policies, like expenditure policies, revenue policies. These are actually, I was going to read them out in the session, but I invite the viewers to go and have a look. And these are like business as usual things to do. These are not things that you, after 16 years of rule, you print in a document saying this is the way we are doing things. This is the way they should have been doing things 15 years ago. So it's staggering, Sashi. I suspect this is in here because of donor funding. They've been told to formulate policies that are fiscally responsible. It'll be interesting to see whether they stick to it. I'll give you an example. I can't help myself, Shashi. This is one of the items in their expenditure policy, right? Tighten control on operational expenditure, including travel, communications, training, workshop, fuel maintenance, purchase of supplies, blah, 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 and KPIs by the permanent secretaries. This is apparently not happening as BAU, Shashi. They have to put it in here. So what do they do at the moment? They're driving around in cars for a presentation. Or the other day I saw a minister just opening a school. It was only a school room, Shashi. They have to go and attend. There's always big entourages going to these openings, 5, 6, 7 vehicles at a time. This should, if they were serious with this document, this should have been happening now. The $3,000 a day allowance, Shashi, if I was the Attorney General, I would have slashed it by now to something more reasonable. That would be responsible economic management, Shashi. So a lot of platitudes in the budget in that respect. They're talking about, here's another one that's really interesting. They're talking about reviewing the realignment of the VAT rate. What does that mean? Does it mean in the next year they're going to adjust the VAT upwards? Come clean, tell the public what you're going to do. This is an election year. So, yes, I just thought I would finish with those parting shots, Sashi.
That's fine.
Just to sort of share just some final thoughts. And, personally, I think, a good economic manager would have done things differently over the last 15 years. And we'd been probably in a better outcome today. So I thought I'd leave that message with the public of Fiji. There is a group in the People's Alliance that are willing to do that job. There's about 6 of us, actually, Shashi. When we come out with our manifesto, we'll share the candidates then. but there's there's a serious attempt to deliver good government to Fiji, and I hope we get the opportunity to do that.
All right, wonderful. And do you have any comments about Sashi Singh's talking point, my platform?
No, thank you, Sashi. I mean, I encourage you if you can get. I've said a few things that I've deliberately said to try and solicit some views from Fiji First. They should be on the show as well. I know you need to interview them so that people get to hear their side of the story. And but I congratulate you on the show. It's certainly an excellent forum for everybody to listen to. The best shows for me was Charles's one at the moment, and also Dr. Wadanasi's one was really instructive because Dr. Wadanasi, as you well appreciate, has been around for a lot longer time than me. So in very senior roles in academia as well. So thank you for this initiative, Sashi, and long it may continue.
Well, thank you very much. A big Vinaka Vakalevu to you. Thank you very much for accepting my invitation to be chief guest in today's program in Sashi Singh's Talking Point. And as I told your party leader, Mr. Rambuka, let me also say to you as the deputy leader, I'll be more than happy to interview other provisional candidates of your party in the weeks to come. And that invitation stands for all political parties, be it the Fiji Labour Party, the National Federation Party, the People's Alliance, the Unity Fiji Party, and also, as you said, and I've said it umpteen times, the Fiji First Party. Manoa, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you as chief guest. I thank you for discussing the various topics that I've raised in today's program, your frank views and responses to my questions. It's been most welcome. Thank you once again, and a big Vinaka Vakalevu to you, sir.
Well, Sashi, and have a good afternoon, and it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
And thank your family for parting with you for just close to 4 hours now. I really appreciate that. Go and enjoy your late lunch or afternoon tea. Savinaka Kemni, Vinavalevu. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Well, like I've said, for the record, let me once again, for the sake of transparency, tell all those viewers who constantly ask me to interview the Attorney General or the Prime Minister, well, SSTP has extended invitations to the Attorney General and also to the Prime Minister that, they're free to come and talk on this program. And so far, I've not had the courtesy of a reply. I thank all those viewers who've taken time to provide their positive feedbacks with regards to this program. SSTP, we ask the questions that Fijians all over the world want answers to. As I say, Fijians want to know. Well, that's it for episode 27 this week. A big thank you to my regular contributor, Nikhil Singh, for his input in the program today. To my SSTP team, a very big thank you as well. And I'd like to thank all our viewers for watching this program today. Our chief guest for next week. I spoke to our chief guest yesterday, and he was going to come back to me. So far, he hasn't, and therefore I will not announce his name out of respect to him. And keep watching the SSTP page, and if it's confirmed, then I will announce it one way or the other. We will try and have a program next week. Look, I wish you all a very safe and happy week. In closing, I'll leave you with this quote from Franklin Roosevelt on the subject of freedom. Franklin Roosevelt said, "In the truest sense, freedom cannot be bestowed. It must be achieved. In the truest sense, freedom cannot be bestowed. It must be achieved." That quote, in closing, from Franklin D. Roosevelt. Well, that's it for episode 27 of Sashi Singh's Talking Point. Till the next program, I am Sashi Singh, bidding you all goodbye, namaste, and ni samode. Goodbye, world.